Chapter 23:30. Nan Xiaonan didn't know whether the crisis was quietly solved behind the scenes. She only knew that if she couldn't pass this hurdle, it would be quite troublesome. This early spring prince might still kill her. Resist? Not to mention the consequences of resisting. She had never heard of anyone who could kill the protagonist in the protagonist's world. It was like eating lettuce, okay? This would be her most affectionate performance. We just hope that Bai Shui can have a good memory. She lowered her eyes and looked at the early spring prince with a complicated expression. Whether she is the vessel of the body of darkness or not, for us, the arrival of this child is the biggest gift from the heavens. The early spring prince said indifferently, "I am very willing to believe in your original intention, but unfortunately, the generous elf is not willing to approach you at this time." Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but smile bitterly. "I really don't mean any harm. I just hope that this wedding can go smoothly. I also don't want this wedding to be ruined." The early spring prince nodded. "It's getting late, Your Majesty. We should go out." Nan Xiaonan asked curiously, How do you plan to deal with this matter?" "I've done what the elf guard asked me to do." The early spring prince said indifferently, "If the crisis of early spring and winter comes from the resurrection of the dark god Gulala, then it will be fine as long as it is not resurrected." Nan Xiaonan frowned subconsciously and said in surprise, "Do you undo to Bai Shui?" The prince shook his head and said, "I think that is a very stupid thing to do. The dark god comes from all the despair and hatred in the world. That is something that ordinary people will avoid. The main thing is that the princess has been living happily, so Gulala will not have a chance to be resurrected." "You are confident that you can do it?" Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but be stunned. "I will try my best to do it in this life." The early spring prince smiled slightly. Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth and said subconsciously, "I understand. You don't love anyone at all." "No, you love everyone. Everyone is the same to you. What you love is just life itself." This prince has a problem. Whether it was coming to chilly winter alone at the beginning, proposing a marriage alliance to solve the hatred between the two countries, or planning to give a kiss of true love in order to save the queen of chilly winter, to now not hesitating to use his life to make the chilly winter princess happy. It was just that he simply wanted to do these beneficial things. This was completely altruistic. The prince in early spring did not care about himself at all. Sacrifice oneself for others? Or could it be that he had already achieved superego on the moral level? "Your Majesty, let's go out. Don't let the guests wait too long," His Highness said softly. "Okay." Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. Perhaps Miss Maid didn't want to kill the prince just because he looked like the boss. This prince was more likely to represent a certain aspect of the boss. If the boss also achieved superego, it meant that he would never truly fall in love with anyone. This lady witch of the academies of the other subworld suddenly remembered a kind of guys in the dimensional rift who called themselves the Immortals. They had a special realm that they had always been pursuing, the Great Oblivion. They combined their bodies with the Tao. They were the Tao of Heaven, and the Tao of Heaven was ruthless. It was impossible for the prince in early spring to fall in love with anyone. The marriage with the chilly winter princess was just to maintain peace. Perhaps, in the years to come, he would even make himself look like he really fell in love with the princess and live on, in order to prevent the resurrection of the dark body. But Nan Xiaonan knew that in this chilly winter world, the little princess was really looking forward to this marriage. "Your Majesty, what do you think is love?" His Highness asked abruptly. Nan Xiaonan loved herself the most, so she did not hesitate, selfish and possessive. His Royal Highness smiled and said, "I married Snow White in order to prevent Gulala from reviving. Is that selfish?" Nan Xiaonan shook her head. "My situation is different. This sophistry is meaningless." His Highness said, waiting for a person, and dying for a person. "If I can do this, is it love?" Nan Xiaonan smiled bitterly. "This is still sophistry, but I can't refute it. But if you can do it, then perhaps it is the sorrow of those who like you. Some people say that, love is a kind of impulse." The prince in early spring shook his head. "But I was born without this kind of impulse." So I don't know what is true love in your eyes, but I think I could do anything. From the heart? Nan Xiaonan frowned. If loving you can make the world better, I can also like you from the heart. He suddenly stopped and looked into Nan Xiaonan's eyes. At this moment, Nan Xiaonan didn't know if it was because of the boss's image, but she almost sank into the other's eyes that were as deep as the starry sky. Nan Xiaonan fiercely bit the tip of her tongue to wake herself up from this wonderful daze. Her chest rose and fell slightly, and she slowly said, "Sorry, I am not interested in a guy who loves everyone." "Sorry." His Highness chuckled. Nan Xiaonan sighed. "Damn, I was really flirted with just now." The prince in early spring, the prince in early spring. As expected of the prince of the spring country. The early spring has arrived, and all things have recovered. It has arrived again. What is the reason for this season? Why do you want to do this? Nan Xiaonan bitterly smiled. She really did not understand. The prince in early spring thought for a while and said, "Probably because I selfishly want to see that there is no pain in this world." "That is impossible," Nan Xiaonan indifferently said. "You have no way to control life and death. You are only one person. How can you love everyone?" The prince in early spring was sad. "I also thought about this when I was young. Do you have an answer?" Nan Xiaonan curiously asked. "No answer." His Highness shook his head. "So I can only dream that I can become the source of everything. Maybe that will be good." Nan Xiaonan could not help but ridicule. "Do you really think of yourself as an omnipotent wish machine?" "Dream," His Highness chuckled. "But if I can become such a wish machine, maybe it is not bad." Nan Xiaonan sneered. "You have to pay a price to do anything. Even if there is an omnipotent wish machine that can fulfill everyone's wishes, where does the wish machine's own divine power come from? Don't be naive. As a person, live a more realistic life. Isn't it better?" At this moment, the prince revealed a contemplative expression. "That's right. Even if I become a wish machine, endlessly fulfilling people's wishes will only make people's desires endless. Perhaps we should set up some thresholds. For example, we need to use the means of exchange." Nan Xiaonan suddenly stopped and looked at the prince in front of her with trepidation. This can't be." His Highness saw that the prince's eyes lit up. "I suddenly have a very interesting idea. If possible, I hope to open a shop, and anyone can come to my shop. Through exchange, regret can be smoothed out." "What the hell? Your Highness, your idea is very dangerous." Winter King's City, Dawn Manor. The girl slowly opened her eyes, but what she saw was not the bedroom of the Winter Princess. This was obviously a strange room. Why did she suddenly appear here? "Are you curious why you are here?" The girl was shocked and turned around, only to see a blonde woman in black sitting impeccably at this time, holding a cup of black tea in one hand and flipping through an old book cover with the other. "Who are you? Where's this place?" The girl suddenly became alert. "I thought you would learn to be smarter." The blonde woman, the servant girl, slowly sighed. "See, after all, you thought of dividing a part of your consciousness into this child. This is already a rare breakthrough for you." "Morgan." The girl was still frightened. I don't understand what you're saying. I have to go. I have seen this child." The servant girl said indifferently. "You may not know, when I just arrived at the Kingdom of Holy Light, the first thing I met was this child and her elder brother. Remia, this child's name." The girl's face changed slightly. She gritted her teeth and rushed out of the door. However, the door was locked. No matter how hard she tried, she could not open it. She almost twisted the door handle, but it was useless. In the end, she took a deep breath and slowly turned around. She gritted her teeth and said, "Do you really want to kill all of us?" The servant girl said indifferently, "That apple is your last resort, the poison that stimulates the power of the god of darkness. What do you want to do?" "Let me think. You want to revive the evil god in Snow White and let the Prince of Early Spring deal with it. Let the two who were supposed to get married kill each other to achieve the ultimate goal of collapsing the page world." The girl's eyes twitched, but she just showed a disdainful sneer. "That's about it," the servant girl said expressionlessly. "I am not interested in speculating other details. After all of this seems to be a very clumsy means. You are too rigid in the story of the page itself. If I were you, I would not have a chance to let Snow White be born at the very beginning. It was this kind of superior and indifferent look again. The girl clenched her fists tightly, her nails digging into her palms and trembling. What are you reading? The girl suddenly said excitedly. Are you reading the Book of Gaia? Have you seen the end of this world? It's mine. You were the one who snatched it from me. Get back to me. The girl rushed to the table crazily, but her body was directly bounced to the wall. The servant girl said slowly, You don't dare to split your soul. Are you afraid that I will see through you? Where are you now? Are you just a hypnotic consciousness? To make Remia mistakenly think that she is a part of Morgan? The girl climbed up awkwardly and said with a sinister smile, I am Remia, the Remia you know. I'm Morgan too, the Morgan who hates you so much. You won't be able to break it because our consciousness has been entangled. This is a curse from the god of darkness unique to this world. Even you can't do anything in a short time. Just kill me. Sigh. The servant girl only sighed softly in response. The girl laughed crazily. To be able to see you so powerless. Everything is worth it. Ha ha. The servant girl suddenly stood up, walked to the side, and took out a black book from the drawer. She opened it. In an instant, the whole room was filled with all kinds of magic circles. The girl's laughter froze. The power unique to this world you're talking about. Are you referring to these? The black book in the servant girl's hand slowly opened. If it is these, I think. I can use it too. But it's not very useful, so I put it aside. Morgan, have you forgotten something? In this world, I am the Witch of Winter, the most powerful mage of winter. No. The girl let out a sorrowful cry. It shouldn't be like this. No. When the light of the magic circle reached its peak, the sorrowful cry stopped abruptly. Then the girl slowly fell to the ground. She woke up again, but looked around blankly. In her memory, there was a luxurious woman who appeared in the dungeon and looked at her. That was all. You don't seem to want to remember who you are. Hearing this, the girl subconsciously looked. Who am I? What she saw was a beautiful blonde woman in black. She felt like she had seen her somewhere before, but she couldn't remember, as if she didn't want to remember. If you don't want to remember, then don't think about it for now. The servant girl smiled and said, Can you do me a small favor? The girl subconsciously said, What is it? I'm going to attend a very important wedding soon. The servant girl said softly, Can you help me tidy up my hair? I'll do the rest by myself. The girl subconsciously nodded, then walked to the woman in black and picked up the comb. Such beautiful hair. In fact, it's almost perfect even without tidying it up. She thought, You are so beautiful. The girl praised softly. That's because you haven't seen me being burned by fire. The servant girl suddenly said. The comb fell from the girl's hand and made a clattering sound. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. The girl hurriedly squatted down and wanted to pick up the comb in panic. No, it's fine. The servant girl stood up. I'm satisfied with this. You can stay in this room all the time. When you want to go back, just open that door. That's your way back. The servant girl reached out and pointed. That should be a wall, but she didn't know when a door appeared in the wall. The girl looked at the door absent-mindedly. After a long time, when she turned around, the woman in black was gone. Only she, who was holding a comb, stood there alone. Remia is a bad girl. She can't go back, the girl muttered to herself. Chapter 23:31. The Prince of Early Spring left and returned to the diplomatic group. The wedding was about to begin, and there was a whole set of cumbersome rules, not to mention that this was the wedding of the prince and princess of the two countries, so naturally they couldn't be careless. After the Prince of Early Spring left, Nan Xiaonan suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. She was afraid that if she continued to talk nonsense with the prince, she would hear more dangerous things. What the prince said was not too much of a problem, but once it overlapped with the outside time and space, it would be a big problem. This might also involve the origin of the shop. Did she want to know? Yes. Of course, she wanted to, but obviously not now. Throughout the history of mankind, as a lackey who knew too much about the master's family did not have a good ending. So, it was not that she didn't want to know, it was just that it was not the time to know. This information that she had already obtained was enough to make her tremble in fear. The crevice of the dimension was divided into the old era and the new era. She was currently in the new era of the void, and the old and new eras had an eternal theme. That was to find the primordial. The primordial was a time and space that was even older than the old era, and legend had it that it was the origin of the endless subworlds. According to the Prince of Early Spring's big idea, the shop was likely to have appeared in the primordial time and space. The shop ran through the primordial, the old era, and the current new era. The answer that all the powerful beings of the void were looking for might be in the shop. She couldn't let her imagination run wild anymore. King Go's keen senses had already made her feel that danger was approaching. She had to slow down, slow down. At least, she had to wait until she was truly integrated into the shop and became a core member. Mother! Hearing the voice, Nan Xiaonan knew that the little princess had come. Looking at the little princess who walked over in a wedding dress, Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but think of another question. Was this little princess her biological daughter? Or, in the primordial time and space, there were not many ethical restrictions? She couldn't help but think of the origin of civilization in some subworlds. Many subworlds were built for the origin of legends and myths. For example, the gods created the first man and woman, so there was the reproduction of human beings. Here comes the math problem. How could a man and woman reproduce a civilization? Mother, what are you thinking? Your smile is so weird. No, I was just wondering if you know what you and the prince are going to do after the wedding. Nan Xiaonan shook her head. At this time, she was still the Winter Queen, so she naturally had to take on this role. Most importantly, the maid didn't shout cut. The little princess blinked and tilted her head. Aren't we living happily together? Yeah, it is indeed blissful sex. Nan Xiaonan nodded. Whatever, it's just the diary of a certain little girl. Diary? Since it's the content of the diary, what happened in the primordial universe to record such a thing? Your Majesty, everything is ready. Please leave with Her Highness. Got it, Nan Xiaonan replied in an imposing manner. You may leave. However, Lady Nan's aura was immediately broken. Here comes Miss Servant. Sister, you're finally here. Today's wedding is really lively. She wore a light white dress and said with a smile, especially the party before the wedding, it's really ingenious. I don't know which little genius idea is it. I really can't help but want to reward her. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. She felt that she needed a quick-acting heart pill at this time. So why are we here? Unlike the city of divine protection, where survival was also a crisis, ever since Arthashes came to the Winter Royal City, he felt like he had returned to the free city. There were things for Khalili to do, occasionally basking in the sun, fishing by the sea, and his days were leisurely. He even felt like he was on vacation. It would be better if he didn't have to work. Attend the wedding of the prince and princess? He subconsciously looked at Madanzo. Very cute. She was really cute. This 11 or 12-year-old little boy was only wearing a pair of suit shorts. In response to the Song of Winter's request, all the waiters at the scene were basically dressed like this. But in order to distinguish between the waiters and the guests, they still wore a uniform bow tie around their necks, a pink bow tie. Asakes looked at Madanzo with the eyes of the honorary president of the Holy Maiden fan club for more than 10 years. He felt that if Madanzo wore a pair of cat ears at this time, she would be able to debut. Isn't this good? You don't have to worry about anything. Madanzo shrugged. Even if the world is destroyed, you don't have to worry because there will always be someone more powerful than you. Enjoy this inconspicuous life, because maybe it won't be long before you won't be able to relax. Do you know something? Mr. Asakes subconsciously frowned. He always felt that this Madanzo was too mysterious. How did Madanzo enter the Holy Maiden ceremony? She was too young to be a staff member. It was illegal to hire child labor in the free city. Audience? Or was she the child of a family member? So she sneaked into the ceremony early? At this moment, K. Forehead Lily, who was wearing an ice blue bikini, walked in front of them with a tray in each hand. Boss Asakes, and you Madanzo, don't be lazy. I'm too busy. Come and help me greet the guests. Madanzo and Asakes looked at each other. Perhaps from the beginning to the end, only K-Forehead Lily was serious about working. The smart kids would have already dealt with the influential people of Coldwinter. For example, Isabel. This grand swimsuit party was like this woman's amusement park. Madanzo just saw Isabel hugging two girls and walking to the corner secretly. Okay, I'll help. Madanzo smiled and took the things in K-Forehead Lily's hands. Since this page world had been arranged clearly by Jean, there was no need for it to worry about anything. As for Asakes and the other children, they had experienced a lot of hardships in the city of God's protection. Let them have a good rest here. Joan of Arc was probably thinking the same thing, right? Hard mouth and soft heart. Oh, a soft-hearted guy. Your Royal Highness. At this time, the crowd began to disperse automatically. In front of the door of the hall, His Royal Highness of the Early Spring Kingdom slowly walked in under everyone's sight. Surprisingly, beside His Royal Highness, there was a man wearing a fox mask. Looking at him, it seemed to be the best man's identity. Who was this person? The delegation of Early Spring walked in together with His Royal Highness. Miss Gamma was very confused at this time because she didn't remember the existence of a person in the delegation of Coldwinter. Moreover, he was the best man of His Royal Highness. Lenina seemed to have been asked and frowned slightly. It seems that he has always been there. I have a very vague impression. You say that, it seems. Miss Gamma stared suspiciously at the back of the fox mask guy and muttered, Did you first? He and His Royal Highness back looked like each other. Silence. Lenina suddenly lowered his voice. The Queen of Coldwinter is here. This will be the most important thing between the two countries of Early Spring and Coldwinter. Although it is a wedding, it is also the most serious diplomatic occasion. There can be no carelessness. Miss Gamma nodded at this time, but quickly said, Remember, there is only one chance. That which? Lenina suddenly looked at her with a dignified face. Miss Gamma's face changed slightly in an instant. Looking at the woman in the bridesmaid costume who appeared beside the little princess of Coldwinter, she couldn't help but tremble. Yes, it's her. How could she? It's over. Gamma was really traumatized by the Witch of Coldwinter. Otherwise, let's forget it. Lenina sighed in his heart. I'm afraid things won't go well today. I'm afraid I won't even have a chance to start. I'm Gamma. Never bow my head. But Miss Gamma gritted her teeth and said, I don't know why, but I can't see this witch. Lenina, let's go. The kidnapping of Coldwinter Princess ended in failure. There was no chance to kidnap a second time. Then, take away the prince. Before going out, Miss Gamma probably drank too many bottles of fake wine. She put her magic staff on Lenina's neck and asked her if she wanted to do it together. Miss Gamma's plan is very simple and rude, but the simplest, perhaps the most effective, is to ambush the prince and princess who are about to enter the temple to complete the wedding ceremony. This is the tradition of Coldwinter. The newlyweds of the royal family need to be blessed by the winter in the temple, and this process cannot be disturbed by outsiders. Therefore, during that time, there should only be the prince of Early Spring and the little princess of Coldwinter in the temple. As the chief magician of Early Spring, Miss Gamma's strength is really first class. It is not very difficult to quietly avoid some restrictions of the Coldwinter temple. I have opened several layers of enchantments of the temple. At that time, I will do this and you will do that, understand? Taking advantage of everyone's concentration at this time, Miss Gamma and Lenina have quietly sneaked into the periphery of the Coldwinter temple. Will it really be so smooth? Everything seems to be going quite smoothly. But as a commander of the army, the more smooth it is, the more suspicious it will arouse Lenina's suspicion. Even if Coldwinter has always had a natural barrier of ice and snow, it is good to be in an absolutely safe environment. But there are only a few guards guarding the temple of the kingdom. It is too much of a joke. Go in, the enchantment has been opened. At this time, Gamma carefully pushed open a door and called Lenina. The two sneaked into the temple together. Inside the temple, there is an abnormally tall guy wearing a silver robe, whose face can be seen clearly. This guy, even if he is sitting, looks to be more than 2 meters tall. That should be one of the austere Divine Temple's priests. Miss Gamma narrowed her eyes and chuckled. Just right. I am ready to give our highness a big surprise. Nina is still cautious. Since it is the priest of cold winter, his strength will not be bad. Don't be impulsive. He has no magic on him. At most, he is a powerful warrior. Miss Gamma sneered. A powerful warrior, even if the weakest magician sneak attacks, will not feel good. With that, Miss Gamma suddenly blew out a breath of air. The powerful magic instantly turned into a hot wind, blowing towards the priest of the temple who is sitting quietly. When the hot wind arrived, the priest of the temple seemed to sense it and hurriedly stood up. Who dares to break into the cold winter temple? But the hot wind suddenly turned into a magic rope and directly tied up the priest. The priest instantly lost his balance and fell to the ground. Seeing that the priest of the cold winter temple was easily subdued, Nina couldn't help but open her mouth slightly. Maybe cold winter is really too comfortable, so that the people of cold winter are not the least bit alert danger. The powerful ice storm created the absolute safety of cold winter, but at the same time deprived cold winter of its ability to survive. She couldn't help but shake her head. Miss Gamma has already walked towards the priest of the temple. This guy looks tall. I didn't expect him to be so weak. Look what he looks like. Miss Gamma curiously tore open the priest's robe. At this time, Nina's heart suddenly jumped at this time and screamed, Gamma, be careful. What? At this time, the floor of the temple suddenly cracked, and Gamma and Nina fell into it at the same time. They first wanted to use magic to fly out of the trap, but there was something in this big pit that was crazily pulling them. With Gamma's magic of the early spring, she could not break away from this pulling force. This is a trap. Nina sighed and looked up at the edge of the deep pit, looking at the priest of the cold winter temple. What kind of priest is there? It's just a few bearded dwarves stacked on top of each other and put on a big robe. It's said that the witch of cold winter has 7 evil bearded dwarves by her side. The first princess said to let you watch the ceremony here. Several bearded dwarves smiled and closed the mechanism on the floor again. Only a rumbling sound was heard. The mechanism was completely closed, and the two of them were trapped in the underground mechanism. Then, the thing that made Gamma vomit blood was that this mechanism could be seen outside, but the outside definitely could not see the existence of the mechanism. This witch of cold winter is so vicious. Miss Gamma instantly grabbed her head and was furious. Nina calmed down and seemed to be relieved. She looked at the quiet temple outside thoughtfully and listened to Gamma's curses. Vicious. It seems that the witch of cold winter didn't really kill the 2 times before and after. Although the last time she beat Gamma, it was really ruthless and gave Gamma a shadow. But there was really no fatal place. Gamma, let's forget it. Nina shook her head. There are still many opportunities in the future to destroy His Highness' marriage. There are many other ways. Gamma? I actually want to forget it for the time being. Miss Gamma suddenly lowered her head this time. But when I think of falling into the hands of that woman twice, I can't control myself. Gamma. One by one, palm-sized magic circles began to appear around Gamma. In an instant, hundreds of them appeared, and they were still increasing crazily. Nina was shocked. This guy was on go all out. Outside the cold winter temple, under the blessings of thousands of people, the newlyweds slowly opened the gate of the temple square, followed by the honor guard. The little princess, wearing a veil and holding flowers in her hand, silently walked with His Highness in the early spring. Behind her and His Highness were the bridesmaids of cold winter. You know, this best man is the person my sister likes. The little princess suddenly whispered beside the prince, but I don't know what he looks like. She had only touched his face in a very peculiar way. From here on out, your eyes should be on me. His Highness said softly, just like me, I will only look at you now. Okay. Chapter 23:32. The ceremony hadn't officially started yet, but everyone was already in position. The priestess of chilly winter was an old man with a white beard. It seemed that he had just arrived and was still panting. You are the priestess of chilly winter temple, Nan Xiaonan. who was the queen of chilly winter, couldn't help but widen her eyes in surprise. Wasn't this old man in a priestess robe the Grandpa Nicholas who gave out New Year's gifts to the children on the snowy peak? Part-time, don't worry about it. Speaking of which, Your Majesty, can you finally see me? Nan Xiaonan wouldn't answer such a question. She was silent for a moment before she said seriously, "Please continue, Your Excellency Priestess." She couldn't afford to be careless at this time. The servant girl was on the scene. Even the boss himself was there. Nan Xiaonan was under a lot of pressure for this performance. She was afraid that she would make a mistake if she wasn't careful. She felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. As for Ding Na, she naturally didn't wear it. As the queen of chilly winter, the role of the little princess mother, if she dared to wear that on the stage, she was afraid that there wouldn't be a life lamp in the Ark of the Covenant in the next second. Anyway, she was the queen. Who would jump out and criticize her? Nan Xiaonan calmed down and subconsciously looked in the direction of Boss Luo. But no matter what, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. She didn't know how the boss felt at this moment. After all, the Prince of Early Spring was actually the boss' own. Am I seeing myself marry my sister? Does this wedding really exist in the primordial time and space? Your Majesty, please come to me. Priestess Nicholas called out with a solemn expression at this time. Nan Xiaonan shuddered and hurriedly collected her thoughts. She slowly walked up the stairs, but she suddenly stopped. She felt that there was a slight tremor on the floor just now. Damn it. The magic power exuded a terrible heat like flowing magma. In the space under the temple's hall, Renina had to resist with all her strength because of the continuous explosion of gamma. But even so, he was still unable to break through the seal of the mechanism. Especially here, he could clearly see the people walking into the temple, as well as the ceremony that had already begun. Everything was clearly visible, especially the Witch of Chilly Winter. She seemed to intentionally or unintentionally lower her head to look at the location of the mechanism. There was no expression on the face of the Witch of Cold Winter, but in Gamma's eyes, such an indifferent gaze was probably only ridicule. Gamma, stop. If you continue like this, I will be roasted by your magic before you break the mechanism. She's laughing at me. Did you see that? She was clearly laughing at me. Why? Nina couldn't help but sigh. Logically speaking, Lin Dong's Witch and Gamma shouldn't have any interaction. Could it be that there really were people who were born to dislike each other? Gamma, I can't hold on any longer. Renina clenched his teeth and said. At this time, the magic power was still irritable, even more violent than before. But in just a moment, the magic power began to calm down. Gamma punched the wall. Her chest rose and fell. Her eyes flickered as if she was thinking about something. Suddenly, Miss Gamma took a deep breath and said seriously, "We apologize. Please let us out, no matter what. As witnesses of the early spring, if we can't attend, it will only shame our prince. Witch of Chilly Winter, no matter how you find fault afterwards, I'll take it. But please let us out now." Nina looked at Gamma in disbelief. What about never lowering his head? "I'm sorry. I was wrong." Gamma took a deep breath and slowly bent down. Rumble. On the side of the wall, an exit slowly cracked open. "Thank you." Gamma seemed to be out of strength. After saying that in a low voice, she walked directly into the exit. Why hasn't the witness of the early spring appeared yet? Have you been waiting for a long time? What's going on? I haven't seen Lord Gamma and Lord Nina since just now. Could it be that this is the last stubbornness of the domestic opposition? In the hall, the whispers gradually increased. However, the pair of newlyweds had already prepared early, and the Queen of Chilly Winter was already in place. "Your Highness, if the two witnesses of the early spring don't appear, I'm afraid." Priest Nicholas looked at the Prince of Chilly Spring rather awkwardly. However, the Prince of Chilly Spring smiled and said, "Actually, there is no need for many witnesses. My wedding with the princess has long been witnessed by the elves of the atmosphere. It is enough." Priest Nicholas raised his head slightly and saw a dazzling brilliance in the temple. Colorful, The elves of the atmosphere that were rarely seen in the past appeared in the main hall of the temple one after another. At this time, the audience realized that these were the elves of the atmosphere. They were actually so close to them. Some of the elves were hovering above their heads, and some were sitting on their shoulders. They floated in the main hall like half of the starlight. The elves of the early spring, the elves of the winter, the elves of the autumn wind, those who could be called by their names, and those who couldn't be called by their names. Priest Nicholas smiled and said, "I heard it. The elves of the whole world are blessing you. This is supposed to be a ceremony to accept the blessing and baptism of the winter. In this case, it is superfluous. However, the ceremony still needs to continue. Please come to my place. He really looks like me." The voice of Miss Maid sounded, and then she looked at Boss Luo beside her. They were the best man and bridesmaid in this wedding. They should play a very important role and stand in a conspicuous position. But even if they stood in a conspicuous position, it was easy to be ignored. Like me, Boss Luo heard this and chuckled. "He is originally me." Once, Miss Maid whispered, "At the very beginning, actually I almost attacked this prince." Boss Luo shook his head. "Actually, I learned one thing from him." Miss Maid tilted her head curiously. Luochio said slowly, "I don't know if this is my previous life. If this is my previous life, then my love for you should have started from my previous life." Miss Maid held a treasure in her hand and placed it in front of her chest. She murmured, "Even if it's just a puppet's body, its heart will still beat. So it won't be." Boss Luo smiled slightly. Miss Maid's eyes were a little hazy, but a loud sound woke her up at this moment. The door of the main hall of the temple was directly knocked open. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the chief magician of the early spring and the commander of the First Legion walked in quickly. Miss Maid couldn't help but frown and said indifferently, "Compared to them, maybe Miss Long is more innocent. Amazing. She knows when to yield and when to stand tall. I was too careless. They don't mean any harm." Boss Luo smiled slightly. "This wedding, this stage, no one is malicious." Miss Maid heaved a sigh of relief. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have let this wedding go on." Boss Luo smiled amusedly. "Is this declaring sovereignty?" Miss Maid replied with a confident smile. She was no longer the puppet who only sat quietly in the dark of the shop and opened her eyes only when customers came. "Wait, we don't agree with this wedding." They pushed open the door of the main hall and walked in expressionlessly under everyone's gaze. They also planned to carry out the ceremony. On the steps, the Queen of Cold Winter suddenly held her forehead. How could Miss Gamma, who looked like Kelowna Shinryu, be more capable than Kelowna Shinryu? When she was beaten last time, her thoughts weren't clear yet. "Master Gamma, Master Lenina," a messenger of the early spring delegation, rushed out at this time. Just as Gamma raised her hand, she swept the messenger back to the original place. "What are you going to do?" The ministers of Cold Winter couldn't stand it anymore and shouted angrily, "Do you want to destroy this wedding?" Miss Gamma sneered. "I'm sorry, this wedding is between the two countries. Everything should not be done according to the rules of Cold Winter, but also according to the rules of our early spring." The rules of early spring? The ministers of Cold Winter looked at each other. Yes, the rules of early spring. Miss Gamma tore off her clothes at this time. Under the clothes of the delegation, there was a set of exquisite wedding clothes. According to the rules of our early spring, the groom can rob. "I don't agree with this wedding. Princess of Cold Winter, accept my challenge. This is a sacred challenge." With that, Gamma took off her gloves and threw them on the ground. Everyone. After Gamma threw the gloves on the ground, the next moment, she tore off Lane Nina's clothes. The girl was also wearing a gorgeous wedding dress. Moreover, under Lane Nina's reluctance, Miss Gamma forcibly tore off her gloves and threw them on the ground together. "This is a challenge between the two of us." Miss Gamma's voice shook in the hall. "Your Highness, only the strong deserve it. Princess of Cold Winter, if you don't dare to accept it, just give up." They were very aggressive. On the side, Miss Maid slowly sighed and said with a bitter smile, "Anyway, Miss Gaia's taste is really special." Boss Luo showed a long-lost smile, as if he saw something really happy. The Gaia I found from the Punlai treasure house is not the real Gaia. Even if I brought her back to the shop, she was mostly asleep. Book of Gaia is the only way I can know more about her. Early spring, is there really such a rule? On the steps, the little princess of cold winter showed a curious gaze and looked at the prince of early spring beside her. There was no anger on her face. His Highness smiled casually and said, "There was such a rule, but it was a long time ago. Until now, no one has carried out such a duel. Do you want to agree? If I lose, can I marry you?" The little princess thought for a while and said. The prince of early spring said softly, "Even if you lose, we can change places. I feel like I can beat them." The little princess wrinkled her nose. "Wait for me." With that, the little princess of cold winter slowly walked down the steps. "I agree to your challenge. But don't worry, I will be very careful and won't hurt you." Gamma sneered directly. She would never lower her head, but she would lower her head for this moment of desperate counterattack. At this moment, there was no turning back. As for Lei Nina, who was forced to be tied to the warship, at this time, there was no appointment, and he was ready to fight. "Gamma, be careful. This princess of cold winter is the same as His Highness. They are all favored by the spirit of air. I know, but she's just a child who has not been deeply involved in the world. How much actual combat experience can she have?" Gamma nodded. Even so, she was still fully alert. The little princess of cold winter slowly raised her hand at this time, as if she was preparing to launch magic. Lei Nina's eyes focused. As an excellent warrior, this was the best opportunity for her to make a move. The petite figure flashed out, and the next moment, Lei Nina had already rushed up the steps. But at this time, Lei Nina only felt that his body lost balance in an instant and directly floated up. A colorful bubble actually wrapped her whole body. Gulala energy. Woo! Bubble. The little princess of cold winter stretched out her hands at this time. Lei Nina's whole body was directly taken away by the colorful bubble. At the same time, Miss Gamma's body was also directly wrapped by the colorful bubble. Miss Gamma's face changed slightly. This kind of bubble could not be broken. Gulala energy. Whoop. Whirlwind. The little princess of cold winter waved her hands again. At this time, the two colorful bubbles were suddenly stirred up by a whirlwind. The two of them were dizzy and vaguely wanted to vomit. Gulala energy. Its mother's mother. Lightning. Two huge lightning bolts shot directly from outside the temple gate through the colorful bubbles directly into the body of Miss Gamma and Lei Nina. The two screamed a few times, then the whirlwind and the bubbles disappeared, and the two fell to the ground directly burned black, twitching. Gulala energy. Beep, beep, beep. Treatment. Their injuries were healed, and they sat on the ground, looking blankly at the little princess of cold winter who stuck out her tongue on the steps. "What happened just now?" "We lost." Lei Nina smiled bitterly. "Gamma, forget it." Miss Gamma's face was gray, and she slowly stood up, sighed, and said with a wry smile, "Bless you." Seeing this, the priest Nicholas quickly stood up and spoke. He was afraid that there would be some changes in the ceremony. "Then, I announce that the ceremony continues." "Wait a minute." The little princess of cold winter raised her hand at this time and said, "Grandpa Nicholas, can you let them come with us?" "Your Royal Highness?" The priest Nicholas was stunned. "Together? What do you mean? It's us getting married together." The little princess of cold winter showed a bright smile at this time. "If you like each other, then come and get married. I don't want to be the only one today. So I announce, all the people you like can get married today." With that, the little princess trotted to the front of Gamma and Lei Nina, who were at a loss, and grabbed their hands. "Come on, let's get married with His Royal Highness." Do you know what you're talking about?" Gamma's voice trembled. "This princess shouldn't be. Don't know what to do when you get married?" "I know." The little princess of cold winter smiled. "As long as you get married, you can live happily together. Isn't it good for everyone to be happy? No suspicion, no hatred. Stay with the people you like. Eat together, play together, work together, and sleep together. then you won't feel lonely. That's impossible. Gamma smiled bitterly. You're too naive. Why is it impossible? The little princess of cold winter shook her head. Then her body emitted a white light and slowly floated to the sky above the hall. In that instant, all of the elves gathered around her. Gulala energy, love storm. A pink wind suddenly rushed out of the gate of the cold winter temple like a flood and blew across the entire cold winter royal city. Everyone seemed to be lost in this pink storm. In the palace hall, Asakes and Medanzo, who were shirtless and wearing a bow tie, finally took advantage of K. Forehead Lily's inattention to go fishing. The moment the pink storm came, neither of them could react until after the storm. Asash's fingers inadvertently brushed Medanzo's arm. The two instantly had a kind of electric shock in their hearts. Oh no, it's actually the feeling of love. Medanzo, your bow tie is crooked, I'll help you. In the hall, the men and women who had feelings for each other slowly walked to each other at this time and looked at each other affectionately. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Cold Winter subconsciously looked at the envoy in charge of the early spring diplomatic mission and murmured, I've actually always admired your country's culture. You and I seem to have been friends for many years. We hit off at first sight. The envoy of early spring also murmured in response. Different voices gradually sounded. Actually, when I first saw you, do you believe in love? I actually, listening to those voices, the cold winter queen on the stairs was stunned. She tried hard to find a figure of the boss and Miss Maid in the hall, but she couldn't see them. She only saw a pair of old eyes looking at her. Priest Nicholas, your Majesty, after so many years, you finally remember me. Do you still remember Nicholas beside the fireplace that New Year? What the F***CK? That pink storm was the magic of the cold winter princess. But the power of this magic was too outrageous, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 23:33. Everyone, let's get married together. The little princess of chilly winter floated in the temple, and the fairy of the atmosphere around her kept shining. The pink storm even began to spread outside the chilly winter royal city. There was something wrong with the little princess of chilly winter. Nan Xiaonan felt a chill in her heart at this time, and then she pushed Nicholas, who was a little out of control, away. But Bishop Nicholas did not give up and approached again. Even his eyes changed. She had to knock the bishop out directly. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked around the main hall. The guests in the main hall were already paired up in pairs. She didn't know when to start. Get married, get married, get married. People's eyes were blank, but their mouths repeatedly murmured the word get married. It was like the scene of some large-scale, evil ceremony. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Subconsciously, she looked down the steps and saw Gamma and Lenina. At this time, like everyone else, they slowly climbed up the steps. Obviously, they came to find His Royal Highness in early spring. Prince, where's the prince? She hurriedly looked for him, but found that the prince of early spring was not far from her. He looked at the little princess of chilly winter thoughtfully at this time. Could it be that even he was affected by magic? Nan Xiaonan was shocked. She saw that the prince of early spring suddenly looked at her at this time. She was so scared that she quickly took 2 steps back. She was afraid that the prince would do something irreparable. Please don't fall in love with me. Strange, you don't seem to be affected. The prince of early spring had clear eyes. He was not affected by magic at all. Lady Nin came back to her senses at this time. Indeed, after the pink storm blew, she didn't seem to be different. At least, she didn't fall in love with anyone. I see. The prince of early spring suddenly smiled. So, this is your selfishness. Nan Xiaonan was startled. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a figure rush into the temple hall. It was Metatro, bare-chested and wearing a pink bow tie. It wasn't alone, but it was carrying Asakes. One of Asash's arms was abnormally twisted. How did you? Nan Xiaonan's eyes widened. Metatro landed on the ground and scanned the area. Then, he threw Arthas on the ground. This guy wanted to touch me, so I broke his hand. So what happened here? Where are they? Nan Xiaonan asked subconsciously. He's also unconscious. He's in a safe place. Medanzo said quickly. Then her gaze fell on the chilly Dong princess above. She frowned and said, "So, is this the source of the disturbance? I'm afraid everyone has underestimated the little princess's strength." Nan Xiaonan smiled bitterly and said, "She is probably out of control now. How do we solve it?" Madanzo suddenly asked, but she was looking at the prince in the beginning of spring. His Royal Highness shook his head and asked, "Why do we have to solve it?" Nan Xiaonan said subconsciously, "Isn't it natural? If this continues, these people will combine with each other. Want to be a mess?" The prince in the beginning of spring thought and said, "If everything is planned and rearranged to form a new order, and under this order, everyone is in a state of satisfaction, then do you still think it's a mess?" Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth, but she was speechless at this time. She gritted her teeth and said, This is simply self-deception, and it's just borrowing the princess's power. If the princess's power disappears and everything is restored, what will happen when people remember it?" His Royal Highness smiled and said, "Then let this power continue. Do you hear the excited cries of the air elves? If the princess's power is not enough, she can use mine. If she can't be the cause of all this, then there's still me. That's just the two of you deceiving yourselves." Madanzo suddenly sneered. It was not clear about the situation, but it hit the nail on the head. A pale smile appeared on the prince's face. He even coughed twice, and his face became even paler. The so-called self-deception is also a kind of perception of the outside world. For you, if this is our self-deception, then, if you don't exist, it should be fine. "Senior, be careful," Nan Xiaonan cried out. A golden light flashed, and the entire top of the stairs was directly cut in half. In the hand of the prince in the beginning of spring, the sword transformed from the elven guard bluebird was already in his hand. Half of the stairs that were cut directly collapsed, making a rumbling sound. In the air, a few meters above, Madanzo's face was now filled with fear. No one would have thought that this seemingly cultured and refined prince of early spring would suddenly strike a killing blow. What's wrong with this male protagonist? Madanzo subconsciously looked at Nan Xiaonan in Winter Queen-esque disguise. How do I know? Nan Xiaonan met the prince's gaze, and her heart suddenly trembled. She subconsciously said, "Maybe this is actually not superego, but self." "What's superego, self?" Madanzo frowned, and her face immediately changed. The prince in the beginning of spring had already rushed over with his sword. It was still the harmless and warm smile, but there was a terrible, murderous intent. Madanzo seemed to see the cold hell behind the prince in the beginning of spring. She subconsciously condensed two holy light swords and superimposed them to resist. But the powerful holy light swords were instantly split by the prince in the beginning of spring. Madanzo was directly slashed to the ground. In the hall, the people who were hugging each other turned a blind eye at this time. Their eyes were not dull, but flashed with strange brilliance. Their faces were even filled with a satisfied smile. This scene was almost perfect, but it overlapped with the prince's terrible murderous intent, which looked extremely strange. Madanzo spat out a mouthful of blood and slowly got up. The prince in the beginning of spring was walking slowly toward her at this time, but Madanzo had a feeling that there was no way to retreat. Her body seemed to be trapped in a quagmire. The air was full of sluggish power, as if there was a small hand pulling her body. The spirit of the atmosphere, the omnipresent power of the world. She was facing an opponent who could use the power of the entire winter world at will. How could she fight? Wait, I'm in, Madanzo suddenly shouted. In a hurry, she reached out and pointed at the back of the Winter Queen, who was at a loss. In fact, she was about to escape her. I can live with her. We can admit. No, accept the new order. His Royal Highness glanced at the Winter Queen casually. Nan Xiaonan only felt that the gaze behind her was like the tip of a needle. She timidly turned around and said with an embarrassed smile that, "I also accept the new order, but can I live alone? Your Royal Highness, it's good to be single. You don't belong here." His Royal Highness shook his head. "Unstable factors should be eliminated. Your Majesty, I'm very happy to talk to you before. I'm going to die. Nan Xiaonan held her breath. The moment the prince looked at her, her heart seemed to be pierced by a sharp sword. In fact, the sword was originally used to fight against the god of darkness, Gulala. At this time, it was already stabbing her. She had never felt the arrival of death so vividly. She was most afraid of death. In order to survive, begging for mercy had always been a common thing. However, in the face of real death at this time, she found that she couldn't say a word. On the contrary, there was a kind of unprecedented ease. It turned out that the more one lived, the more tired it was. The sword that could cut everything flashed by. Nan Xiaonan closed her eyes at this time and tilted her head slightly. She only felt a chill coming from her cheek at this time. She subconsciously opened her eyes. Prince of Early Spring was right in front of her. The sword seemed to have missed its target and pierced into the wall behind her. "You," she said in a daze. "I thought I could do it." Prince of Early Spring muttered to himself, but suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper, and he coughed painfully. His Royal Highness suddenly rolled down from the high platform. Nan Xiaonan looked at this scene in disbelief. She didn't even feel the slightest joy because she picked up a life. She leaned against the wall in a daze, and her body slid down. Her whole person seemed to have lost her soul. The spirit of the atmosphere began to draw closer to the Prince of Early Spring. However, the Prince of Early Spring seemed like he would never open his eyes again. More and more atmospheric elves came closer, and the elves even began to separate from Princess of Chilly Winter. Princess of Chilly Winter, who was in a strange state, had a change in her eyes at this time. She was like a person who was suddenly awakened. Her body that was floating in the air suddenly floated down. "Here, how could it be?" The little princess muttered to herself, looking around in fear. "Your Royal Highness." A cry of surprise rang out, and then two figures quickly rushed towards the Prince of Early Spring. It was Gamma and Renina. "Prince, how could he?" Princess of Chilly Winter came hesitantly, and her voice trembled slightly. Gamma held Prince of Early Spring in her arms. She looked down and said bitterly, "His Royal Highness has been in poor health since he was young. The more he communicates with the atmospheric elves, the worse his health will be. However, his strength has never stopped growing. His body can't bear it anymore. Will he die?" Princess of Chilly Winter trembled. "I don't know." Gamma gritted her teeth, "But I'll try my best." "Princess, you?" A slender figure suddenly threw herself into the arms of Prince of Early Spring and hugged him tightly. Princess of Chilly Winter hugged the prince tightly and whispered softly, "Snow Elf, help me save him. Okay? Sister Flower Elf, Grandpa Wind Elf, Uncle Water Elf. Everyone help me, okay? White Snow really likes him. Only he is like Snow White, able to chat with everyone. I beg of you." In the temple, rays of elves representing different elements appeared and rushed directly to the two people who were hugging each other. The brilliance lifted them up. A light beam went straight to the sky. Those who were blown by the pink storm, under the illumination of the brilliance, subconsciously looked at the two people who were slowly rising in the light beam. There seemed to be a sound of blessings between heaven and earth. In the pillar of light, the Chilly Winter Princess took a deep breath, closed her eyes timidly, and slowly kissed His Royal Highness, who was in Early Spring. At that moment, the breath of spring quietly filled the air in Chilly Winter. It quietly infiltrated everyone. At this time, Prince of Early Spring slowly opened his eyes at this time. "You're awake." Princess of Chilly Winter blushed. "I just kissed you secretly." His Royal Highness chuckled and said, "What's the taste?" The little princess suddenly screamed, held her face with both hands, and lowered her head. In the hall, someone clapped with both hands, and the applause went from sparse to enthusiastic. Priest Nicholas of the temple climbed up from the corner. He felt that his waist was hit by something, and at this time he quickly announced loudly, "In the name of winter, I witness. The ceremony is complete." Dong, dong, dong. It was a pair of huge hanging bells on the top of the temple. At this time, the hanging bells were swinging with each other. In front of the gate of the temple, Prince of Early Spring held Princess of Chilly Winter and slowly walked out. At this time, the palace mages released ice flowers into the sky at this time. They seemed to have forgotten the scene that happened in the hall. Only Nan Xiaonan and Madanzo squatted in the corner at this time with a strange expression. They were very puzzled by this absurd and strange ending. So, in the end, Snow White woke Prince Charming with a kiss of true love. Madanzo said while looking at the sky. Lady Nan smiled bitterly and shook her head. Senior, do you think the reason why the princess is loved by the whole country is because of her power? Madanzo shrugged and said indifferently, no matter what it is, anyway, I don't want to experience it again. Suddenly, it glanced at a certain corner. Over there, Arthas was still lying on the ground like a corpse. Damn it, he actually touched me. Ice flowers fluttered in the air, and the elves sang in the sky. On the steps of the gate of the temple, Princess of Chilly Winter threw the flower ball in her hand into the sky. Everyone was looking forward to being the lucky one to get the flower ball. However, a demon wind suddenly blew out and rolled the flower ball directly into the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Who do you think will get it? Princess of Chilly Winter said with a look of expectation. Prince of Early Spring chuckled and said, probably them. Princess of Chilly Winter subconsciously reached out and held Prince of Early Spring's cheek. Her heart trembled slightly. It was the same. Prince of Chilly Winter lowered his head and kissed her forehead at this time. There were cheers. The flower ball fell into the hands of Boss Luo. In the tower of the intertwined hanging bells, he handed the flower ball to Miss Maid and kissed her passionately at the place where the bells rang. On the fence of the tower, Book of Gaia began to turn to a page of Chilly Winter. Eternal calendar, month of love, the third day clear. Today is the day I look forward to the most. After rehearsing for so long, my brother finally agreed to accompany me on the stage to perform in the school play. Finally, it's a complete success. Humph. Those bad women behind, listen, no matter who my brother marries in the future, you must remember that the first one to marry my brother is me. You are all behind me, jealous of me. I'm happy. In the subworld number 03, in the office of the chief editor of a third-rate magazine in a forbidden magic city with shocking housing prices. Editor Ron, who was browsing her mobile phone while doing nothing, suddenly received a message. Then, Editor Ren directly spat out a mouthful of white rice, spraying it on Li Zi's face, who was also doing nothing. Sister Ren, what a waste. Look at what I saw. Editor Ren opened her eyes wide at this time, pointing the mobile phone screen at Li Zi. It was a photo on the screen. In the photo, it was a photo of Boss Luo and Miss Maid in a formal dress. In the photo, Miss Maid was holding a flower ball, snuggling up to Luochio with a charming smile. Li Zi blinked and rolled her eyes. Well, I'm full. Thanks for your hospitality. End of this chapter. Chapter 23:34. Dawn Manor. While the people in Winter City were immersed in the celebration, the manor was even more deserted. The bearded dwarf brothers who were supposed to guard the house had been sent away. Asakes was carrying Celine, who hadn't woken up yet, into this unknown manor with Isabel and the others. They didn't know what had happened. There was a blank memory in the middle of the prince and princess wedding. Asakes only knew that one of his arms was broken when he woke up. Madanzo said that he fell. He was the vampire Countess Rose. How could his arm be broken? Why did you ask us to come here? Isabel looked at Madanzo in confusion. The message was sent by Madanzo, and the message to gather was sent by Yulia. You'll know soon. Madanzo found a place to sit down leisurely. Boss Asakes, look. At this moment, Kay, or Lily, hurriedly pointed at the stairs on the second floor of the hall. A blonde woman in black was walking down the stairs slowly. Behind the black-clothed blonde woman, there was also a rather thin, short-haired woman following behind her. You Yan. Asakes couldn't help but widen his eyes. The memories that had been sealed for more than 10 years in the city of God Bless began to emerge. Miss Nan is also here. Long time no see, Mr. Asakes. How are you? Miss Maid walked down the stairs and greeted him with a smile. And Miss Kay, or Lily, long time no see. It's really you. Lily exclaimed, as if she couldn't believe what she saw. They had been lost in the world of the pages, and there was nothing happier than meeting an acquaintance. The feeling of meeting an acquaintance in a foreign country was indescribable. You know them? Isabel looked at Essex with sparkling eyes. She recognized the blonde woman in black. They had met in Miss Assman's tailor shop. For Isabel, it was an unforgettable encounter. For Isabel, whether it was the woman in black in front of her or the young man surnamed Luo, they both made her salivate. They used to be guests of the residence. Mr. Essex heaved a sigh and said, "Before we got into trouble. All right, there should be one more. Where's Mr. Luo? Is he not with the two of you? He still has something to do, so he's not here for the time being." Miss Maid smiled and said, "Don't worry, he's fine. He's not in any danger. When he finishes his work, he'll meet you again, Mr. Essex." Essex nodded. He was very afraid of Miss Yuye's gaze. Every time, it would remind him of the stern gaze of his grandmother, who had already passed away. At this moment, Isabel frowned and said, "Wait, why are you here, this manor?" "Miss Yuye is the owner of this manor," Nan Xiaonan said at the right time. "At the same time, she's also the princess of Chilly Winter. She's the one who arranged everything behind the scenes." "So, Yulia knows about this?" Isabel muttered. "Yulia was the one who arranged for us to appear as employees of Dawn Manor." "Where's Yulia?" "She has already gone back," Miss Maid said calmly. Go back. Go back, where?" Asash's heart trembled. He seemed to have realized something, and his breathing quickened. "Of course, to the City of Freedom." Miss Maid said casually, "I've found a way to leave. Now, I've gathered all of you here to help you return." Everyone looked at each other. Then they were overjoyed. A whirlpool light door, as tall as two people, appeared in the hall. Miss Maid's voice sounded at the same time. "So, who's going first?" Isabel's eyes flickered, but she didn't move. Essex showed a hint of hesitation, and Forehead Lily subconsciously clenched her collar. "Let me go first." Nan Xiaonan walked out at this time and walked directly into the light door without any hesitation. "I don't want to stay here. The City of Freedom is more interesting." Then Madanzo jumped out from the chair and followed Nan Xiaonan into the light door. Essex gritted his teeth. Did Yulia really go back first? Only Miss Maid's indifferent eyes responded to him. Essex felt his scalp tingling. He smiled embarrassedly and took a deep breath. He handed Celine to Forehead Lily and then walked into the light door. When he disappeared into the light door, Forehead Lily couldn't help but feel nervous. Suddenly, Mr. Essex poked his head out from the light door. "It seems to be true. Forehead Lily, hurry up and bring Celine with you. And Isabel, too." "Al." "Okay." The mansion's maid immediately carried Sister Selin and ran toward the door of light. Finally, only Isabel was left in the hall. "Don't you want to go back?" Miss Maid glanced at her expressionlessly. Isabel narrowed her eyes and chuckled. "If you've mastered the way to return, then as long as you're here, you can return at any time, right? It just so happens that there's no one around now." "Isabel," Miss Maid said the name abruptly. Isabel's smile widened. "Did you call out my name?" Miss Maid shook her head. "You don't deserve this name. It's the name of the Mother of Saints. No matter how much hope your family has for you, I don't intend to admit it. You'll be called Isha from now on." "What?" Isabel opened her mouth in shock. A huge suction force instantly sucked Isabel, Isha, into the light door. She didn't even have time to react before she disappeared completely in the hall. "They're all good-for-nothings." Miss Maid sighed. "Only Essex has grown up a little, but it's still difficult for him to take on the responsibility." "Aren't you too harsh on them?" Miss Maid raised her head. The person she cared about the most was in the corridor upstairs. Miss Maid took a step forward and appeared in the corridor on the second floor in the next moment. "No matter which subworld it is, when I walked out of the village for the first time, I was at most 16 years old." Miss Maid looked indifferent. Boss Luo gently poked between her eyebrows. "You're the only girl in Orleans." Miss Maid said directly, "Master, if you think they can do it, I can personally teach them for a period of time. That would definitely be an unforgettable memory in their hearts." Boss Luo chuckled and didn't mention this matter again. While pondering, he tapped on the fence lightly with his finger. In the hall of the manor, many ice sculptures appeared instantly. Those were the managers of the 7 capitals of the Holy Light Kingdom and many staff members who were also at the Holy Maiden ceremony. Even St. John, who temporarily replaced Michael as the Archangel of the Kingdom of Heaven, had 2 identities now. Master, how do you plan to deal with these guys? Miss Maid asked directly. Boss Luo said, why do you think Morgan imprisoned them here at that time? Miss Maid thought for a moment and said, it might be related to the god of darkness of the chilly winter world. The entire chilly winter kingdom seems to have been secretly transformed by Morgan in these years. Tell me about it. Miss Maid said, it should be a rather large magic array, and its main function is to sacrifice. In fact, from the moment Morgan descended as the Queen of Chilly Winter, she had already begun to plan this matter. She may have planned to sacrifice these managers and St. John directly, so that when the god of darkness resurrects, she can steal the divine power of the god of darkness. Calvin should be Wizard Merlin of the Celtic kingdom. He has done similar things before. These days, I've studied the original copy of the Book of Gaia and found that as long as the Book of Gaia exists, all the power manifestations in the page world can be realized outside. The behemoth of the apocalypse, the god of darkness. Boss Luo shook his head. If these powers appear in the Holy Light Kingdom, it will indeed bring a terrible disaster. In fact, Boss Luo had the obligation to prevent these disasters from happening in the Holy Light Kingdom. After all, the Kingdom of Heaven paid a high rent every term. Not to mention the Kingdom of Heaven. Even in the ordinary society of the human world, if a tenant's house broke a light bulb, the tenant had the right to ask the landlord to fix it. This was based on the spirit of the contract. All these years, the Kingdom of Heaven had always been impregnable. Even when the Transcendent Level Organization launched a large-scale invasion, they could only return in defeat. It seemed that the high rent for the Kingdom of Heaven was not worth it just for the purpose of renting. However, once the Kingdom of Heaven encountered an irresistible crisis during the lease period, the high rent would reflect its value. The reason why he directly gave up the Kingdom of Heaven and went to find Primordial alone was naturally because he understood the content of the contract. As long as the Seraphs did not seek death and continued to pay the rent, the Kingdom of Heaven could continue to exist. As for whether the new owner of the shop would take back the Kingdom of Heaven, it was no longer something he could completely control. If Boss Luo was determined to take back the Kingdom of Heaven, it was useless whether he was there or not. If the Boss Luo did not take back the Kingdom of Heaven, it was useless whether he was there or not. On the other hand, for Boss Luo, whether to continue the lease of the Kingdom of Heaven or not, it would not affect the rights and benefits of the contract before the lease of the Kingdom of Heaven expired. Even if the contract was going to expire tomorrow, the Holy Light Kingdom was in chaos today and was about to be destroyed. The shop would still take action based on the spirit of the contract. Moreover, the Kingdom of Heaven was originally a product of the shop. As the original owner, he naturally did not want to see his house destroyed. Let's leave it here for the time being. Boss Luo thought at this moment and said, if we let them out now, then the day of suffering ritual should be stopped. I'm still very interested in the person behind the scenes. Then, what about the lease of the Kingdom of Heaven? Boss Luo thought for a moment and said, I'll talk to Michael and Medanzo alone in the end. We'll decide then. Now, let's not talk about this first. Miss Maid blinked her eyes in confusion. Boss Luo smiled and said, I'll return to the unfinished page world later. Before that, let's make a snowman. Miss Maid opened her mouth slightly in surprise. Boss Luo held her hand and said, we've never made a snowman before. There are many interesting things that I want to do with you. At sunset, outside the Dawn Manor, the little princess of chilly winter slowly pushed open the iron gate of the manor. But in the end, she did not choose to enter the manor. Behind her, the prince of early spring asked curiously, don't you plan to go in? The little princess of chilly winter shook her head. Sister seems to have left. The prince in early spring was stunned. He looked into the manor and saw that in the corner of the courtyard, there were 2 snowmen cuddling together, both wearing a red scarf. The setting sun dyed them orange. The Prince of Early Spring smiled and said, I haven't had the time to say goodbye. Let's go back. The little princess of chilly winter suddenly recovered her spirit. Then she held the Prince of Early Spring's hand with a blush and mumbled. The old nanny in the palace said, I have to sleep with you at night. Tisk. Why is Snow White chased by the vicious queen? Why does she have to faint after eating an apple every time? And why does she have to be kissed by the prince on a white horse every time? This is wrong. When can a woman stand up? But isn't this how storybooks are written? See, this is a storybook. No more. In the small town station park, under the setting sun, a female junior high student who skipped classes today tore apart a storybook in front of a group of primary school monks. The primary school monks were scared to tears, trying to find their mother. The female junior high student proudly put her hands on her waist and raised her nose high. Sigh. She suddenly sighed and sat on the swing next to her out of boredom. In the empty park, she swung again and again until the sky completely darkened. Her brother went on a business trip. On the first day, she felt good. On the second day, she still felt good. On the third day, she felt uncomfortable. He didn't even call back. Could it be that he was abducted by a bad woman? If he still doesn't call back today, I won't forgive him for 1 week. She muttered to herself. If there is spicy fried chicken, I'll forgive you. The girl closed her eyes and then slowly opened her mouth. She made a chewing action with a look of enjoyment. Well, it's okay. I forgive you. Feed me one more bite, please. Then, I'll reluctantly let you wash my underwear. Ah, crunch. A crispy bite instantly exploded in her mouth. Then, the fresh spiciness and saltiness exploded on her taste buds like a storm. The female junior high student suddenly opened her eyes. You've grown up. You'd better wash those clothes yourself. Brother, cough, cough, cough. The girl choked. The spiciness rushed into her respiratory tract, to her head. I'm going to die. They heard it. When did brother come back? Chapter 23:35. For you. What's this? A letter. The girl curiously opened the bag and found that there were a few fresh-looking apples inside. She directly threw the bag on the table and shook her head. I hate eating apples. That's too much. Coming back from a business trip, he only brought back a few apples. Look at him. How could he do such a thing with such a cute sister? She was so angry that she didn't say a word to Boss Luo during dinner. You didn't go to school these days? Luochio asked patiently. I'm full. She made a face, rushed into the room, and hung up the wooden sign that said, Do not disturb. From the time he left to the time he returned, about 4 days had passed in the small town. The small town was still the same small town, like a sand table that had been fixed long ago. Luochio planned to do an experiment, so he went to the door and knocked. I will have a holiday. Are you interested in going to the beach? For a long time, there was no sound coming from the room. After a while, the door quietly opened a gap. The girl's eyes carefully looked at everything outside. She didn't see her brother. The door was half opened, and the girl muttered, What? He must have no perseverance. Hold on a little longer. Maybe I will come out, really. A sweet smell came at this time. The girl's nose moved. The body was always more honest than the mouth. The smell was so sweet that she couldn't help but walk to the kitchen. I just made an apple pie. Do you want to eat it? I hate eating apples. Luochio smiled, wearing special baking gloves, and took out a plate from the oven. The fresh apples came out of the oven. The surface was yellow and crispy, and when cut, it made a sizzling sound. The girl swallowed her saliva disappointingly. I made too much. It will be a waste if we can't finish it. Luochio sighed. By the way, you can send some to teacher Lily. Last time she came to visit our home, it was too much trouble for her. Just take it as a thank you gift. Without saying a word, the girl grabbed a piece of apple pie and started to eat it. However, the freshly baked pie was too hot, and she immediately stuck out her tongue from the heat. Don't you hate eating apples? Luochio blinked. Humph. Even if I hate it, I won't let other women take advantage of it. That woman is a witch who takes people to school. I won't please her. The girl held the plate and quickly ran back to the room. Before she closed the door, she made a face. Are we really not going to beach? The girl paused, then shook her head and directly closed the door. Boss Luo looked out of the window thoughtfully. Just now, the space outside the town changed vaguely, and a shadow of the seaside appeared in an instant. But it was only for a moment. Only by stepping out of this town will the world be complete. Luocio thought. The key was how to make the girl willing to leave the town. It was obviously impossible to take her away directly. Only when the girl had a place she wanted to go, the world outside of the town would be formed. The first night, after returning from the business trip, passed peacefully. When she got up in the morning and walked out of the room, there was already breakfast on the table. Her brother only left a note, "Enjoy your breakfast," and disappeared. Last night he said he had a holiday, big liar. I don't know where he went. The girl had no appetite. When she was alone at home, she didn't like to hide in the room, but she liked to occupy the whole sofa and lie down like a useless person. Strange. Why are there no strange TV dramas? She clearly remembered that before her brother went on his business trip, the TV was playing some strange TV dramas all day long. But now, there was only the morning news. She suddenly thought of something. Her brother didn't change his clothes when he came back yesterday, right? She stared at the inconspicuous suitcase in the corner of the living room. It seemed that the suitcase hadn't been opened. The girl blinked and then sneakily glanced at the direction of the door. Then she rolled from the sofa to the carpet like a caterpillar. Then he rolled over to the suitcase. An adult man's suitcase after coming back from a business trip. The girl's eyes suddenly emitted an evil light, and her hands trembled as she touched the suitcase. But her evil hands were blocked by the combination lock. The password is not my birthday. Too much. Obviously, this wasn't a problem for the girl with evil thoughts, so the girl took a kitchen knife from the kitchen and a hammer from the toolbox. After a while, the combination lock couldn't bear the burden and was abandoned. The girl licked her lips. It was time to taste the fruit of victory. She opened the suitcase with blazing eyes, but was instantly dumbfounded. It wasn't that there was nothing inside, but it was stuffed full, and there wasn't any spare space wasted. The most important thing was that the suitcase was packed too neatly, and there was a smell of laundry detergent on the clothes. Who would wash clothes on a business trip? The girl sighed in disappointment, but she didn't give up. She dug out everything in the suitcase and even took a magnifying glass to examine it carefully. Well, I didn't find those little rubber circles. It seems that he didn't do anything bad. What is this? A somewhat shabby, diary-like thing attracted the girl's attention. It was placed at the bottom of the suitcase, hidden very carefully. My brother doesn't have the habit of keeping a diary, right? The girl frowned, but she was unable to suppress the curiosity in her heart. She took out the diary. She undid the button on the diary and flipped to a page with her heart thumping. The sense of betrayal and nervousness brought about by the peeping caused the girl to involuntarily tremble, and goosebumps appeared all over her body. However, the pages of the diary were all blank. There was no content at all. The girl couldn't help but frown suspiciously and selflessly turn the pages one by one. Finally, she found something on one page. Eternal calendar, bright moon, last day, no rain. My time seems to be running out. Suddenly, I want to go to the seaside. There were only 3 short sentences on this page, and it seemed like it wasn't finished yet. Whether it was the date or the content, there was no beginning or end. The young girl couldn't help but blink, and then her expression changed slightly. She saw that on this page, there were dark red dots that looked like red ink. My brother, did he? Miss Lily had been absent for several days. The most popular foreign language teacher in the school didn't show up for several days, and the results of the foreign language subjects of the whole grade dropped instantly. It couldn't go on like this, so Mr. Chin Tian fought his way out of the encirclement, and, as the school's representative, he went to visit Miss Lily. Today, Mr. Chin Tian dressed himself very neatly and even wore a brand new suit. With flowers in his hand, he went to Miss Lily's apartment. It should be the 7th floor? Mr. Chin Tian took a deep breath and walked out of the elevator. But as soon as he walked out of the elevator, he saw a figure. He instinctively hid in the elevator, and after waiting for a while, he hurriedly walked out of the elevator again and came to the door of the apartment where the figure entered. On the address, it was Miss Lily's apartment number. The one who just went in seems to be Xiaoya's brother. What was their relationship? For a moment, Mr. Qingtian felt that the flowers in his hand didn't smell good. His suit didn't seem so neat, and his hair was a little messy. What was their relationship? Even in the morning, the sun was shining brightly, but the apartment was very dark and all the curtains were drawn tightly. Boss Luo found Miss Lily in the corner. When he found her, she even pulled the curtains to cover her body. Boss Luo casually put a fruit basket on the tea table and snapped his fingers, and the curtains in the apartment slowly opened. I heard that Miss Lily is not feeling well, so I came to visit you. It seems that the situation is worse than I thought. Are you okay, teacher? Don't come over. The woman in the corner trembled. Her spirit seemed to have been terribly destroyed, and she had curled up for a long time. Her hair was messy, her eyes were bloodshot, and even her lips were dry and cracked. At this moment, Lilith was still biting her fingernails. Boss Luo said indifferently, "It seems that you haven't walked out of one of the futures. Miss Lily, maybe you're not as strong as you think." Lily trembled again, and her body seemed to shrink a little. She even hugged her head, desperately squeezing to the corner. Boss Luo poured a glass of water, came to her, and slowly squatted down. Lily was obviously very scared, but unless she turned into a mouse, there was no space for her to squeeze into the corner. "Come on, drink some water first," Boss Luo said with a smile. Lily's heart trembled. It seemed that she shouldn't resist this man. She instinctively stretched out her trembling hand and took the glass of water. But her arm trembled uncontrollably, and the water in the glass was about to spill out. Lily had to hold the glass with both hands and gulp down the water directly. She couldn't resist this terrible man. Even if this was the most terrible poison in the world, she had to drink it. This was what her instinct told her. Drink, it's... Cough, cough. She was so scared that she couldn't help but cough. The water was poured into her mouth, and now it flowed down her face and also wet her clothes. Boss Luo called for a piece of tissue, folded it twice, and then took the tissue to gently wipe Lily's face and said indifferently, "Morgan has disappeared." Lily, who was supposed to be trembling, heard this and instantly widened her eyes. She was motionless and even held her breath. "I have a rough idea of what you want to do." Boss Luo continued to wipe her face. "Now I'm only curious about one thing. Where'd you get the Book of Gaia?" A flash of fear appeared in Lily's eyes. Her spirit had been greatly tortured by the future, and now she didn't look like a human, but she still felt afraid of something. "Someone gave it to you, right?" Boss Luo said indifferently. Lily didn't say anything, but she avoided Boss Luo's hand even more in fear. Boss Luo didn't care and said slowly, "Teacher Lily, you can rest assured that I have the ability to protect you, as long as you can provide me with some useful information." Lily opened her mouth subconsciously. It's not the same. It's not the same." Boss Luo muttered. "Although what you saw was only one of your futures, the damage to you seems to be beyond my expectations. This way, we can't talk properly." Lily raised her head subconsciously. Every time she closed her eyes, she would see the future where she didn't look like a human, nor a ghost. She was like a walking corpse, imprisoned and raised in captivity, and her body festered with ugliness. Who could accept such a future? "I will temporarily take back this kind of future," Boss Luo said directly in the next moment. How to take it back? She almost blurted out, and she even forgot about her fear. That was only a possibility in the future, and it hadn't appeared yet. But it brought fear because it might appear. Knowing its existence, its effect was on the soul, and this was all on the spiritual level. Take it back? Lily only felt that it was ridiculous. What was more ridiculous was that she couldn't accept that she had fallen into a state of near collapse because of the uncertainty of the future. Keep the memory temporarily, take away the fear, Boss Luo said indifferently. Teacher Lily, please recover your rationality temporarily. What exactly are you? At this moment, Lily didn't feel any fear in her heart. In the terrifying future, she seemed to be an unrelated stranger. She wouldn't be touched by the miserable future of a stranger. This was a very strange state. She knew this, but she seemed to have become a third party. She didn't seem to be herself. Let's talk about the Book of Gaia. Boss Luo smiled slightly. Lilith was silent for a while before she took a deep breath and said indifferently, "Before that, don't you want me to tidy up a bit? Or do you prefer me to appear like a doll that's about to be broken so that you can show your absolute authority?" Boss Luo smiled indifferently and said slowly, "I heard that Lily was dissatisfied with Adam's authority as a male, so there was a series of stories later. Are you the main character in the story, Teacher Lily?" Lily narrowed her eyes and chuckled. "If you let me be on top, I'll let you feel unprecedented happiness. Your fear is still here." Boss Luo opened his palm casually. There was a light ball that brought despair, the heart of fear that was just taken away from Lily. Lily quickly took 2 steps back and gritted her teeth. "That's why I hate male authority." End of this chapter. Chapter 23:36. Lily, who appeared again, looked much more dignified. Her long hair was still curled with a trace of moisture, mixed with the fragrance of shower gel, which was pleasing to the eye. People's pursuit of beauty usually began with touch. Sight, smell. Boss Luo didn't deny that Lily really had a very good appearance. At this time, she didn't look like a free sage. This should be her original appearance, but in fact, she was 60% to 70% similar to Mistmaid. When the genetic evolution of all things to a certain extent, there seemed to be a convergence. It seems that you prefer this type. It's almost perfect. Boss Luo smiled indifferently and didn't hide the admiration in his eyes. It seems that the person who created it spent a lot of effort. Lily chuckled. At this time, she lacked fear in her heart. Naturally, she became fearless. But this was just a temporary nature. Her heart of fear was still in the hands of the other party. This made her extremely cautious. In this case, even if she lacked the heart of fear, she was not really fearless. Thinking of this, Lily wiped her hair while her whole body was filled with a sense of laziness. The past few days were really terrible for her. She didn't even know how she got through it. She silently observed the person in front of her. He was Little Ye's brother in this core page world. Basically, the male protagonists in the Book of Gaia, in most cases, appeared as the female protagonist brother. The Book of Gaia was the diary of his younger sister, and the older brother in the diary was the one in front of him. Most likely, he was the original older brother, and not a copy derived from the Book of Gaia. During the shower time, Lily had already considered a lot of things, including how to continue the conversation with the other party at this time. The key was if the other party didn't intend to kill her, but intended to cooperate. What could she gain from this cooperation? He was obviously not interested in her beauty. Lily only felt pity about this, but she didn't feel despair. It wasn't that there weren't people who were indifferent to beauty, but very few. Obviously, she was unlucky to encounter this very few. Ask me what you want to know. Lily intended to use the simplest and most direct way. I will tell you everything I know. But before that, you have to let me know what benefits this will bring to me. For the strong, the most direct was often the best, the core of direct benefits. How about immortality? Boss Luo smiled and said. Lily instinctively frowned. To her, this kind of promise was really perfunctory or even just a casual remark. Immortality? Lily laughed coquettishly. If I become a stone and exist eternally, I'm afraid I won't break. This is too general. With your current identity, you are immortal. Boss Luo added a condition directly. Lilith couldn't help but be slightly moved. Her eyes revealed a strange color as she chuckled. You know, you look like a swindler right now. Boss Luo took a sip of water and said calmly, Do you know Asman? Asman? Lily frowned. She didn't feel uncomfortable with the change of topic. She muttered, You're talking about the heir of the clothing store with a long history in Free City, right? How much do you know about her? Boss Luo asked curiously. Lily said, I don't know her. I only know about her because of the Sage of Freedom. The higher-ups of the heavenly state want me to replace the Sage of Freedom who is handed over. Then, I have to do a lot of homework. The Sage of Freedom once knew Asman's ancestors, and it was also written in the information. Then, why are you asking about this person? I saw her in the Dongrami village in the painting, so I'm curious, Boss Luo said after thinking for a while. You're talking about the landscape painting in the Rose Mansion, right? Lily nodded. I know about this, but I couldn't interfere. I'm not too sure about the specifics of the whole thing. I only know that the Archangel is behind this, but I can roughly guess what it wants to do. Because you guessed it, you plan to break away from the control of the palace of blazing heaven, right? Lily said calmly. Actually, my sage status is real. I once thought about letting myself continue with this identity. Are the blazing angels of the palace of blazing heaven controlling me? Actually, it's a two-way street. Only I can do this. So, while they control me, they will also be restrained by me. They even have to satisfy some of my requests that are not too excessive. As long as I think about how even the angels of the palace of blazing heaven in the heavenly state have to be wary of a puppet like me, I feel really good. Boss Luo looked at her as if he was listening attentively. Lily's eyes suddenly dimmed. She said in a low voice, "What I can't stand is that they really treat me as a free sage. They only have St. Joan in their eyes. They have completely forgotten my name." Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "Do you know about the holy water? You're talking about Balaam, right?" Lily chuckled. Balaam is actually a very ambitious person. The city of Dawn doesn't have a sage. It's under the supervision of all the sages. However, there are occasional conflicts between the sages. So, the city of Dawn can be said to have the strictest supervision, but at the same time, the supervision is also the most chaotic. For a long time, the city of Dawn's faith status was very bad until Balaam appeared and became the president with a large number of votes. In a short time, the city of Dawn's faith status returned to the top of the 7 capitals. He used the effect of the holy water. Boss Luo nodded. Lily said, "Yes, he relied on the holy water. It seems that you already know a lot. But do you know the origin of the holy water?" Boss Luo thought for a while and said, "I heard that it was researched by a great scholar who was expelled from the City of Freedom. That Master Marianne is also the awakened Morgan of the Outer God. I was the one who expelled Marianne." Lily chuckled. "As a heretic, but at that time, Morgan hadn't awakened, and there was no problem with her faith. I was only interested in the holy water that she created. Later, I expelled her to the sinful land in the name of the Duan. On one hand, I hoped that she would continue to research the holy water. On the other hand, I wanted to prevent her from being exposed to the destiny system. In fact, there were many problems with the destiny system a long time ago, causing many believers of the Holy Light Kingdom to be unable to pray. The seraphs could only temporarily place this batch of believers in the sinful land. This gave me a very good place." Boss Luo said, "What about great scholar Calvin? I know that he once traveled with Asakes and Ludic to follow in Marianne's footsteps." Lilith said, "Marianne only awoke as an outer god after arriving at the sinful land. It was also beyond my expectations. Fortunately, it was in a place like the sinful land. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to cover it up. At the same time, Calvin also awakened as an outer god. Both Morgan and Merlin came from the Celtic deities and were thrown into the Holy Light Kingdom at the same time. Therefore, I suspect that the awakening of Morgan also triggered the awakening of Merlin. The appearance of 2 outer gods in succession was already beyond my expectations, but it seems to be a good opportunity for me. You want to take revenge on the Blazing Palace? I just want to prove that I can take care of the free city better than a true saint of freedom. When I want to destroy it, I'm more thorough than anyone else." A hint of madness flashed in Lily's eyes as she sneered. "They treat me as a plaything. Why can't I treat them as playthings too? Tell me what happened next," Boss Luo said indifferently. Lily said, "I asked Calvin to travel and meet up with Marianne. However, although the Blazing Palace has never had a good solution for the people in the sinful land, it has not always ignored them. Marianne's awakening still left traces. So I learned of Marianne's death and then asked Calvin to take 2 students and find her in the snow, as well as the child in her arms." "That child is Kate Lily? That child is Marianne. The one who died is just an ordinary woman in the sinful land," Kate Lily said indifferently. "For me, who has the status of a saint, it is not difficult to make a person of the holy light return to the state of a baby. What's more, there are more and more loopholes in the destiny system, so things are easier. Boss Luo shook his head and said, but in fact, Kerrigan later appeared as Huaying. She is the niece of the city lord of the Free City, Durant. After Kerrigan woke up, her power recovered too quickly. Even with my cover-up, she could not escape the self-detection function of the destiny system. Lily chuckled and said, so I made a decision to divide Kerrigan and put half of her soul power and all of her memories into Huaying. The other half will continue to grow as K-Air Lily. This should be a means to suppress Kerrigan. Boss Luo nodded. But why did you let Calvin participate in this matter? Calvin is Merlin, and he is also from the Celtic pantheon. But although he is from the same place, he is not on the same side as Kerrigan. I need Calvin to be loyal to me for the time being. So, giving K-Air Lily to him is a good reward. Boss Luo shook his head. Ms. Kerrigan is really a little pitiful. Living in an environment full of calculations, she is the only one who is honestly seeking revenge. Lily said calmly. During the Holy Maiden ceremony, Calvin secretly let K-Air Lily into the venue and brought her into the Book of Gaia. This was not my idea, but I have a rough idea of what he wants to do. He should be planning to take back Kerrigan's power through K-Air Lily in the Page World, but he does not need Kerrigan's memories. This way, he can inherit the power of the Celtic pantheon. This old man has a lot of ideas, and his ambition is not small. So if I'm not wrong, you have met him, right? Boss Luo avoided the question. You have not told me the connection between Mr. Balaam and the holy water. Lily said, Balaam is a monster created by Marianne in the land of sin. He is the source of the new generation of holy water. Through him, Dawn City should be in my hands. It is not just Dawn City. Boss Luo said, through Balaam, the new generation of holy water has flowed into the other 7 capitals. You have influenced the entire Holy Light Kingdom. Do you think these believers who have been thrown into the Holy Light Kingdom are really happy? Lily sneered. These believers have been brought from different worlds and completely transformed. The original sin in their hearts has been stripped away. However, there is no way to change their thoughts. For countless years, generation after generation, they will always feel suppressed, and the original impulse of humanity will always appear. Prayer suppresses these people's primitive desires time and time again, but only makes these primitive desires continue to accumulate. In the end, their thoughts can't bear the burning of the flames of desire. I'm just providing these poor lambs with a way to release the desires in their hearts. Similar to the underground casino that Norsta opened privately. Boss Luo asked suddenly. Lilith chuckled. You know more than I thought. That's right. I'm the one who controls Norsta's casino. However, this is only a small part of it. There are similar places in the 7 capitals. This is an extremely large spiderweb that covers the entire Holy Light Kingdom, especially the few developed entertainment businesses in Dawn City. Boss Luo narrowed his eyes. You even control a group of Holy Maiden. Lily seemed to have noticed the change in Boss Luo's gaze. Only the free cities have the Holy Maiden ceremony. The Holy Maiden is the representative of the free saints in the Holy Light Kingdom. This is an extremely dazzling halo. Do you know how tempting the girls with such a halo are in the eyes of the people in the 7 capitals who have suppressed their desires? They won't really touch the free saints, but it is possible for them to be the representative of the free saints. Boss Luo heaved a sigh of relief and said calmly, So, you're almost ready. Lily nodded. Actually, I wasn't ready yet. However, the Archangel suddenly descended and started to investigate the faith accounts in the 7 capitals. It started to suspect me, so I could only take action until I activated the Book of Gaia at the Holy Maiden ceremony. Everything was under my control. Until now, you still intend to avoid the problem of the Book of Gaia, Madam Lily? Boss Luo couldn't help but sigh. Lily chuckled. I have said so much, but you still haven't told me exactly what I can get. Luaccio said faintly, It seems, Madam Lily, you are really not interested in being immortal. Lily looked at him seductively and said, Don't use such childish words to coax me. You're not interested in my body. Let's talk about something more practical. What do you want? Boss Luo asked calmly. I want to become a saint, Lily said calmly. A true saint. Saint Lily. End of chapter. Chapter 23:37. Then, I'll have to bother you today. Boss Luo stood up. The conversation was over, and he was satisfied with the result. At least, Miss Lily seemed to be satisfied. She didn't ask when Boss Luo would fulfill his promise. A person described in the Book of Gaia shouldn't be spied on. Madanzo didn't spend much time in the Book of Gaia, but she could associate the Book of Gaia with the primordial and even further guess the relationship between the two. Not to mention, she had held the Book of Gaia for a long time. Before the Holy Maiden ritual started, she had already completed most of the content in the Book of Gaia with Morgan. Lily knew more about the description of the primordial in the Book of Gaia than Madanzo. She sent Boss Luo to the door. At this time, she still only knew that Boss Luo existed as Little Gaia's brother. As for the rest, she shouldn't pry into it at this time. When will we meet again? Lilith asked softly. Her voice and expression were perfect. It was so good that it was as if she was saying goodbye to her lover. Miss Lily, you know where I live. Boss Luo smiled casually and said, so it's not about when we will meet again, but when you will think of me. Mysterious, mysterious, and powerful. Mysterious, elegant, and powerful. He was almost the most perfect opposite sex that Lily had ever seen. In fact, Adam wasn't perfect, she wasn't perfect, and later, Eve wasn't perfect either. Then soon, I will miss you. Lily showed a charming smile. You don't have to send me off. Boss Luo waved his hand, and then his eyes fell on a crystal ball decoration in the cabinet at the entrance. The inside of the crystal ball was like a miniature world. When it was reversed, snowflakes would fall. It was quite exquisite, but it was just an ordinary crystal ball decoration. Lily didn't know why he seemed to be interested in an ordinary crystal ball. Boss Luo picked up the crystal ball and then did something that made Lily stunned. The crystal ball in his left hand and her heart of fear in his right hand. Then these two things were perfectly combined under the control of Boss Luo. Suddenly, a dark star appeared in the small world inside the crystal ball filled with floating snowflakes. This is for you, Miss Lily. Boss Luo chuckled and put the new crystal ball decoration back to its original position. It's very fragile. If you accidentally break it, the things inside run out. Please take good care of it. Lilith couldn't help but take a deep breath. Her hands and feet were cold. Open the door and close the door. Lily still stood motionless at the entrance. She looked at the crystal ball decoration with fear and hesitation. Boss Luo used this method to return her heart of fear back to her. Once this crystal ball was broken, her heart of fear would be released. Did this mean that she would return to the state of mental breakdown that was worse than death? After a long time, this charming woman with ambition and wisdom smiled bitterly. She held the crystal ball steadily with both hands and said with a bitter smile, this thing, no matter how it is stored, it can't make people feel at ease. To Lily, this crystal ball was no different from the heart that was separated from the legendary lich. Then, should she find a place to hide it? But no matter where she hid it, it was very fragile. The doorbell rang. When Lily pushed open the door of the apartment, she saw a Qing Tian doll with a parted hair in the middle. She felt a little embarrassed, but the smile on her face became more and more attractive. Teacher, Qing Tian, why are you here? The flowers she brought were about to wilt. After seeing Xiaoya's brother enter Teacher Lily's apartment, Teacher, Qing Tian, squatted in the back stairwell and waited bitterly. She really waited until the flowers wilted. Such a long time was enough for a woman to do her hair. Teacher, Qing Tian, finally waited until Xiaoya's brother left. Yes, Teacher Lily, it's like this. You've asked for leave for several days. The school is a little worried, so they asked me to come and visit you. Teacher, Qing Tian, try to look normal. How are you, Teacher Lily? I'm fine. I'm just a little tired. Lily smiled. Teacher, Qing Tian, thank you for visiting me. Please come in and have a seat. A little tired. Teacher, Qing Tian, sighed in her heart. That's right. After such a long time, anyone would be tired. Teacher Lily seems to be in good spirits now. Her face is glowing, and her hair is a little wet. Did she just take a shower? Is this convenient? But why did she look forward to entering teacher Lily's room? It should be fine. Lily chuckled. It's a little messy, but it'll be fine after a little tidying up. If you don't mind, please wait a moment. I'll be done soon. Sure enough, she left some traces. Teacher, Qing Tian, sighed and shook her head. Actually, I still have something to do at school. Teacher Lily, if you're fine, I won't disturb your rest. I hope you can come back soon. Your classmates miss you very much. I'm fine now. I should go back tomorrow. Lily said, later, I'll call the school to cancel my leave. Teacher, Qing Tian, are you sure you don't want to come in? No, I'm in a hurry. Teacher, Fairski, left in a hurry, and his hair was no longer neat. He rushed into the elevator, pulled off the wig on his head with one hand, and sighed heavily. Sure enough, a bald man doesn't deserve love. Lily chuckled and shook her head. Then she closed the door and went back to the apartment. Men were really easy to play with. She sighed slowly, and her eyes fell on the crystal ball again. As long as this thing existed, she couldn't feel at ease. So, how should she deal with this crystal ball? Until the evening, Boss Luo returned home with 2 bags of food. Xiaoya hid in the room as usual and didn't come out. She didn't come out until dinner was ready. But unlike the past, she seemed to have calculated the time and left the room on her own accord. She didn't need anyone to call her. The brother and sister ate dinner in silence. But the girl seemed to have nowhere to put her eyes. She suddenly said, "Don't you watch those strange TV series? The shows I've been watching recently have been broadcast, so I don't watch them." Boss Luo said softly, "Do you want to turn on the TV?" "No." The girl shook her head and finally said, "Let's eat. Tonight's dinner is delicious. Today's luck is good. I bought some fresh ingredients. I want to eat your piece." The girl suddenly stood on tiptoe and accurately took a piece of pork rib from Boss Luo's bowl with her chopsticks. "Your piece looks better." Boss Luo just smiled. He picked up a piece of rib from the plate and put it into the girl's bowl. "Then let's have double the happiness." She was startled, put down her chopsticks, and looked at the food in the bowl and said faintly, "Do you remember when we were young? I always took food from your bowl. At that time, did you hate me?" "I don't remember." Boss Luo shook his head. "Were you like this when you were young?" "Occasionally," the girl said softly. She looked up at her brother and bit her lower lip. "Do you have time?" "Yes." Boss Luo said, "Didn't I say that the company is arranging for me to take a vacation?" The girl took a deep breath. "Well, let's go to the beach." Boss Luo suddenly didn't say anything. The girl couldn't help but look at him nervously. What's wrong? Don't you want to go?" Boss Luo shook his head. "No, I just want to prepare something. By the way, did you see my suitcase? I should have left it at the door, but it seems to have disappeared." "No." The girl stood up. "I'm full, goodbye." Boss Luo smiled. "At home, there's no need to say goodbye." The door closed. In the dark night, radio waves were transmitted, and a magnetic voice sounded in the air. "In the past, I saw you in the crowd. Today, I saw you in the crowd. I don't know when it started, but what I'm most afraid of is not 2 lovers hurting each other, but 2 people who have loved each other for a long time suddenly parting and passing each other by like strangers. I can't stand that kind of cruel process because I can't understand how the intimacy that was implanted into our bones and blood turned into the indifference of forgetting each other. Perhaps this is the sorrow of meeting an old friend at first sight and then being strangers again. Town time is 24:00 sharp. Thank you for still wholeheartedly waiting at Bluebird Radio Station. I'm tonight's host, Lady O's. Welcome to Lady O's Emotional Space. Tonight's program will have a new interactive segment. We will connect 2 listeners at the same time and let the radio waves close the distance between each other. Okay, many listeners have already called in. Let's connect the 2 of you first. Hello. Hello, I'm Lady O's. How should I address you? My name is Rainy. Rainy? But your voice sounds very sunny. I hope your rainy days will pass soon. In the broadcast room, a small blue bird stood in front of the microphone and pressed the button to connect. Second listener, what's your name? I'm called Sister. Hello, Lady O's. I listen to your program every night. What a nice voice. This should be a young girl. The blue bird let out a pleasant laugh. Based on the way you address yourself, You should have an older brother or an older sister, right? Sister, I have an older brother, and we relied on each other since childhood. My older brother is very good to me. Lady O's, judging from your voice, I believe you must be very good to your older brother as well. So, sister, what's troubling you? Sister, I don't know. I'm very scared right now. I suspect that my older brother is dying. Rainy, dying? Is he sick? Sister, I don't know. I found my older brother's diary, and it says that he doesn't have much time left, and his last wish is to go to the beach soon. What should I do now? Lady O's, why don't you directly ask your older brother for confirmation? If he really doesn't have time, he shouldn't continue to hide it for you. Sister, I don't dare. I hope this is fake, and I can pretend that nothing happened. But if it's true, I don't dare to think about it. I really don't dare to think about it. Lady O's, I'm so sad right now. My older brother is outside, and I dare to go out and look for him. At dinner, I want to ask him, but I don't dare to open my mouth. Lady O's, we already know about sister's problem. Listeners in front of the radio, if you have any ideas or if you have anything to say to sister, you can leave a message on my message board. Now, let's listen to Rainy's problem first. Mr. Rainy, are you still there? Rainy, sorry, I'm also thinking about sister's problem. Thinking about it like this, I suddenly realized that my problem isn't that big. I seem to have fallen out of love. Lady O's, how did you break up? Rainy, actually, we didn't start. It's just me. Lady O's, since you haven't started, how do you know that you've fallen out of love? Rainy, today a man went to his house and stayed for a long time. Lady O's, they might just be ordinary friends, and it's normal for friends to visit. Mr. Rainy, aren't you thinking too much? Perhaps the lady you've been silently paying attention to is also silently paying attention to you, but you just don't know it yourself? Rainy, impossible. I don't deserve her at all. She's too perfect. I know that I can't have such a perfect girl. As long as I quietly look at her from behind and see her happy, I'll be very satisfied. Lady O's, but you said that you've fallen out of love. Rainy cried. Can I King be moved by my own feelings? What are you doing as a streamer? Lady O's, let's stop the music and take a look at the messages on the message board. Yes, the first netizen's message is for sister. This netizen called Eat My Eagle said, if my older brother is dying, as his sister, quickly use your body to comfort him. This is my older brother's final salvation. Let's take a look at the next netizen's message. The second netizen said, in view of Mr. Rainy's situation, you have to be wary of multiple short selling. Take advantage of the situation and don't follow blindly, or you'll end up with nothing. What a penetrating speech. In the broadcast room, Lady O's cut the video and looked at the producer outside. What kind of idiotic netizens are tonight? Can't you pick a few normal ones? Chapter 2338. Boss Luo woke up in a smoky environment. When he walked out of the door, the whole living room was filled with a faint gray fog. Burnt, and even a bitter smell filled every corner of the room. Xiaoyu was standing on a small stool, holding a non-stick pan in her hand and performing acrobatics. The non-stick pan in her hand was like a magician's hat, emitting black smoke crazily. What are you doing? The girl was shocked and fell down from the small stool. The non-stick pan in her hand also fell to the ground. The contents spilled out. It was a black sticky substance like sesame paste. I'm trying alchemy. You scared me to death. The girl quickly got up and scooped up the black sticky substance on the floor bit by bit. Alchemy what? Boss Luo opened his mouth in surprise. Was there such a thing in the page world? Yes, alchemy. The girl held the thing in her hand with dissatisfaction. I asked a netizen online for a long time last night and begged him for a long time before I got this formula. Boss Luo looked at the surrounding walls that were blackened by smoke. After a long silence, he nodded and said, what's the use of it? It can make you live longer. It can help you develop. Develop? Boss Luo blinked and looked at the girl's growing body, shaking his head and saying, your development should be fine. If I say it is, then it is. The girl snorted, my hair is not long enough. My legs are not long enough. And my breasts. In short, I want to develop. I want to do alchemy. Don't worry about me. Saying this, the girl ran to the stove again and grabbed a handful of strange things. When she was about to put them on a nonstick pan, the doorbell rang. The fireman came. We received a call saying that there is a suspected fire here. The smoke is billowing. Excuse me, is anyone injured? Not yet. She was like a child who did something wrong. Her head drooped down to her developing chest. Luaccio was absent-mindedly cleaning the battlefield-like kitchen. He was very experienced in this area. After all, in the past few years, from time to time, a certain Annie Run would say that she wanted to fulfill her responsibility as an old mother and personally cook. There were always a lot of things that Luaccio had to clean up after the meal. You're making fun of me. The young girl pitifully raised her head, tears welling up in her eyes. She had been severely reprimanded by the firefighter uncle and even alerted the neighbors. Because of this, she was even more unwilling to go out. Less than half of the kitchen was cleaned up at this time. Boss Luo walked out again with some food in his hand. Fried eggs, bacon, ham, corn, asparagus, and a glass of milk. I'm not hungry, the young girl snorted. Her brother was omnipotent. He was still cleaning the kitchen, but he could still make food at the same time. This isn't breakfast, Boss Luo said seriously. This is alchemy. The girl widened her eyes in astonishment. Boss Luo said softly, this is alchemy and nutrition. Don't you want to make a growth potion? Why don't you try my nutrition version of alchemy potion? The young girl opened her mouth and then pointed at her face that was blackened by smoke. Do I look like I'm easy to fool? Boss Luo took a handkerchief and gently wiped the stains on the young girl's face. Aren't you learning alchemy? Ah, dash. You're making fun of me. The young girl suddenly roared like a dragon, grabbed Boss Luo's hand, opened her mouth, and directly bit his finger. She used a lot of strength, and a deep bite mark appeared on his knuckles. Boss Luo didn't say anything. For him, pain could be adjusted at any time. He looked at the wound on his finger absent-mindedly. This time, origin didn't protect him. This was a real wound. I didn't do it on purpose. The young girl's face was pale, and she looked at the wound on her brother's finger in horror. It was bleeding. I'm sorry. I really didn't do it on purpose. Luaccio shook his head. It's nothing. It's just a small wound. It's bleeding blood, so much blood. But the young girl's spirit seemed to have been greatly stimulated. So much blood. I need to stop the bleeding. What should I do? What should I do? First aid kit. Where's the first aid kit? Where is it? Why can't I find it? Where's the first aid kit? She was like a blind housefly, rummaging in the room. Littleya. Boss Luo walked behind Littleya and patted her shoulder. I'm fine. Littleya slowly turned around and slowly raised her hand with blank eyes. Brother, I'm bleeding a lot. What should I do? Her finger, where the wound was the same as Boss Luo's, was bleeding like a fountain. Luaccio's eyes narrowed, and he saw that Littleya's whole body was covered in blood. Her body instantly exploded, and dark red flesh and blood splattered everywhere. His body, his clothes, the wall, the floor, the sofa, and his face. Luaccio was momentarily absent-minded, and subconsciously reached out to wipe the blood on his face. It was warm. I don't know how to get along with you, he muttered softly. I've always been alone. He suddenly took a deep breath and then closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he could only smell the faint fragrance of a young girl. Boss Luo lifted the blanket, and the young girl was curled up beside him on the bed, sleeping like a kitten. The sudden lifting of the blanket let in the cold air, and the young girl's flawless skin instantly stood up with goosebumps. She woke up with sleepy eyes. Is it morning? I still want to sleep. She turned over and even rolled up the blanket, squeezing herself to the wall. What are you doing here? Boss Luo frowned and asked. The young girl seemed to be in a daze, and she mumbled, They said, this is the last redemption of my brother. I need to use my body. I'm so sleepy. Don't disturb me. Boss Luo shook his head, and, after covering the young girl with the blanket, he walked out of his room. The living room and kitchen were as clean as new, without any thick smoke or alchemy dishes. Boss Luo casually turned on the TV, and the TV was reporting the introduction of a newly opened artificial beach. The beach would be officially open this weekend. Half price. This beach was built outside the town, and it took several years to finally be completed. Boss Luo casually turned off the TV. But the town's range still hadn't expanded, and perhaps they could only wait until the weekend to know. Luochio didn't intend to accelerate time. This page world wasn't finished. It wasn't like the other page worlds that had a complete story, and the end of the story was the starting point, and it would continue to reincarnate. In this page world, any acceleration would make him miss something. Perhaps it was something that would only happen once. The young girl hadn't woken up yet, so Boss Luo left the apartment as usual and prepared to buy today's ingredients. He was an only child since he was young. Without the company of siblings, he didn't even know how to get along with his sister. All of this seemed strange and new to him. In short, he started from taking care of the young girl. "Mr. Luo, here's your mail." In the lobby of the apartment, the security guard stopped Boss Luo, who was about to go out, and sent him a mail. "Thank you. You're welcome." The security guard laughed. "By the way, are you free recently? I have a niece who just graduated, and she's quite nice. I have a girlfriend." Boss Luo came to a corner of the lobby, opened the mail, took out the thing inside, and glanced at it. His expression was somewhat strange. It was a letter of notification. It was sent from the hospital. "This is the recording studio." Isabel slowly opened her eyes. What she saw was an empty stage. On the stage, there was even a string used to hang a puppet. Originally, there was a corpse hanging here, Huan's corpse, but the body was obviously gone. Isabel stood up absent-mindedly and found that she was still sitting in the judge's seat. But the recording studio was extremely quiet at this time. Isabel suddenly felt a chill. The experience in the page world was vivid in her mind, but now it was like a dream. Looking at this familiar scene, Isabel only felt that it was extremely illusory. "You finally woke up." It was Mr. Assash's voice. Isabel turned around subconsciously and saw Mr. Asakes sitting at the back of the audience seat with a tired face. Kair, Lily, and Celine, who had not woken up yet. As for Yulia and the young man, who called himself Medanzo, who walked into the light first, they were nowhere to be seen. "We are really back." Isabel was silent for a while, and then she asked carefully, "Yes, we're really back." Mr. Asakes smiled bitterly. "I've stayed in the city of God Blessing for more than 10 years, and I always wanted to come back. I didn't expect to really come back, but I don't know what to do. ISA, I know how you feel now, because I'm also experiencing it." What did you call me?" Isabel frowned subconsciously. ISA, your name." Mr. Asakes showed a strange look. "What's wrong? You don't seem to recognize yourself." Isabel shook her head, and then she opened the Destiny system. The Destiny system could not be opened in the page world, and now that it could be opened easily, it meant that she had indeed returned to the free city, to the Holy Light Kingdom. However, when she opened the Destiny system and saw her own character information, she was shocked. The character information of the Destiny system completely reflected the personal information of every human in the Holy Light Kingdom, including their psychological state at that time. For example, if Isabel was shocked, then the system status would also show shocked. There was even an additional display, terrified. What shocked Isabel the most was that in her Destiny system, her name had really become ISA. How could this be? Isabel? No, she was now ISA. She was stripped of that name. ISA sat down weakly, but luckily there was a chair beside her. Mr. Asake saw this and quickly came forward and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" We also went through the light door, and we didn't feel any discomfort, so there shouldn't be any side effects. "It's nothing. I just want to calm down." Isha slowly shook her head. She could still be considered calm. However, the change in name did not cause her to be confused. After all, she could remember everything very clearly. "All right, Yulia, what about that woman and child?" They went to find out what happened. Mr. Asakes heard this and bitterly smiled. "I haven't seen Yulia since I woke up. I don't know where she is." "Find out what happened." Mr. Asakes sighed. "You should see for yourself." As he spoke, Mr. Arthesis took out a mobile phone. The mobile phone was broadcasting the current situation outside the Holy Maiden Hall. In the free city, The entire city was shocked by the incident that happened in the Holy Maiden Hall. At this time, outside the hall, there was a crowd of panicked people, and in the sky above the Holy Maiden Hall, black inverted crosses were floating, and on each cross, there were corpses that had died a tragic death. As the Holy Maiden teacher of the City of Freedom Academy, ISA recognized that most of the corpses on the black inverted crosses were the candidates for the Holy Maiden Hall. ISA's voice trembled, and she muttered to herself, "Except for you, Leah and Celine. Almost all of them are dead? How is this possible?" At this time, the door of the recording studio slowly opened. The tense Isha was startled, but when she saw who it was, she heaved a sigh of relief. The ones who opened the door and entered were Nan Xiaonan and Metatro. Asakes said that they wanted to find out what happened. "Miss Nan," Mr. Asakes hurriedly asked, "what's the situation now?" Nan Xiaonan said helplessly, "The situation is bad. The hall seems to be covered by a barrier, and the people outside can't get no matter how hard they try." "We can't get out?" Asakes frowned. Nan Xiaonan shrugged and said, "It's okay for us to get out, but you, and Kay or Lily, I'm afraid it's not okay." Asakes smiled bitterly because, "I'm already a vampire." "Come and see," Isa suddenly exclaimed, and then she put the phone on the table and propped it up. On the small screen, the camera was shaking. The people in the City of Freedom seemed to be possessed at this moment. They raised their hands one by one. They suddenly became extremely orderly and neatly arranged. Then, these people knelt on the ground and shouted something. The black inverted cross in the sky above the Holy Maiden Hall began to slowly rotate. In the sky, a deep voice suddenly rang out. "Pray." Chapter 23:39. Pray. It sounded like a voice from the heavens, but it was actually ringing in people's hearts. It was majestic, grand, and unquestionable. Therefore, people knelt on the ground. Praying was an innate ability for the people of the free city. However, the strange thing was that the wish power generated by people's prayers was black. The numerous black inverted crosses spiraling in the air were like an absorber. It turned into a whirlpool, rapidly extracting the black power of will generated by the people. In the sky above the free city, a black storm was forming and shrouding in darkness. Among the praying crowd, a figure was running quickly. Soon, the figure had climbed up a tall building. The building was not far from the Holy Maiden ceremony venue. It could overlook the entire venue. Her breathing was slightly hurried. Miss Assman had climbed up to the top of the building and kicked open the door of the corridor. The whistling wind instantly poured into the corridor, knocking her hair into a mess. She walked out, and in this storm, she saw a strong back. At this moment, he was opening his arms, embracing the storm that was blowing between heaven and earth. He was laughing excitedly. Miss Assman gritted her teeth and approached the muscular figure against the wind. "Balaam." He stopped laughing and slowly turned around. His face wouldn't be unfamiliar to the people of the Holy Light Kingdom. He was like a real celebrity that everyone knew. The president of the 7th capital, City of Dawn, Balaam. Assman. President Balaam's eyes were filled with joy. "I didn't expect you to come out. I thought you still needed some time." "Something special happened." Miss Assman frowned. "The ceremony was started by you?" President Balaam shook his head and said with a smile, "I don't have such ability. It was it." Miss Assman was shocked and said with a trembling voice, "It couldn't wait anymore?" President Balaam said, "That's not something I care about. What I'm waiting for is the appearance of this moment, the birth of a new order. The kingdom of heaven will welcome a new master." Miss Assman frowned and said subconsciously, "What new master are you talking about? It never considered itself a master." "You'll know soon enough." President Balaam chuckled. Miss Assman pondered for a moment. Suddenly, she charged at Balaam, but at that moment, Balaam's president opened his mouth and spat out a bright red straw. The straw was like a leech, heading straight for Miss Assman's chest. Miss Assman turned pale with fright and retreated. Although she had dodged, a terrifying wound had been torn open on her arm. "Balaam, you monster!" Miss Assman lowered her head, feeling dizzy. Such a monster was also created by you. The straw was already in his mouth, and President Balaam opened his hands slightly. You used Marianne's hands to give birth to me. Originally, I was just a talk show actor. My life was very happy. I had a beautiful wife and a cute daughter. However, you have transformed me into what I am now. Miss Assman suddenly slumped to the ground. Balaam was a humanoid holy water creation machine. His attacks were too terrifying. He had directly injected a new generation of holy water into her body. Assman, welcome the new master of heavenly kingdom with me. Balaam walked over with a strange smile. But at that moment, Miss Assman's face suddenly became unreal. In a short moment, Miss Assman's face had changed into another woman's appearance. Mara, President Balaam was dazed. This was the appearance of his most beloved woman. But at that moment, Miss Assman's face changed again. This time, it was the appearance of a young girl. Balaam's president cried out in shock, his voice trembling. This was his daughter. Seeing Miss Assman's face changing between his most beloved woman and his most beloved daughter, President Balaam was enraged. At that moment, Miss Assman pressed her hands on the ground, and the entire roof collapsed. From the collapse, a figure soared into the sky. It was Balaam's president. At that moment, he was like some kind of insect. His ribs had fleshy membranes opening up and slowly flapping. He looked at the collapsed roof with uncertainty, but he didn't see Miss Assman. President Balaam snorted. Miss Assman wouldn't be able to hold on for long because he had injected a new holy water into her body. He took a deep breath and looked at the depths of the dark clouds, muttering, Master of Fate, I have sensed your arrival. Are you ready? I will present you with this gift. Holy Maiden's Ceremony Venue, Recording Studio. Everyone's faces were heavy. The strange atmosphere in the free cities could deeply affect them, even though they were in the recording studio through the screen. What is this? Mr. Assakes suddenly exclaimed. His gaze was chaotic, and his voice trembled. Everything we experience in the other world seemed to be, it was broadcasted live. Isha's phone slipped to the ground. Even though the people in free cities were no longer under control, the internet was still there. They could easily find what had happened on the internet, and they could even see a lot of replays. From the perspective of different Holy Maiden candidates, they had experienced different worlds. Among them, the experience of Assakes and Isha in the City of God was exposed to the eyes of the people in free cities. Even though Mr. Assakes didn't find the content of what happened after 15 years in the City of God, the content of the first 15 years was very clear. So we have been watched all this time. Mr. Assakes mumbled to himself. The fact that he had become a vampire was exposed to the eyes of the people. As the descendant of the Sage family, he should have walked to the stake himself. Oh no, they found out that they were already dead. Nan Shounen couldn't help but sigh. As for her, she didn't care. After all, she had been using Yulia as avatar, so she didn't exist in society. Madanzo said, Don't worry, they're not as weak as you think. Nan Shounen suddenly said, By the way, Senpai, didn't you come out from the Page World? Didn't you say that you would find the secret of the main account and then start killing everything? Metatro rolled his eyes. Your servant girl is here. What else do I have to do? Do you think I'm going to kill Lonesome? Nan Shounen wanted to laugh at her, but she found that Madanzo's current state was not quite right. What's wrong with your body? The edges of Metatro's body had turned blurry to a certain extent. She smiled bitterly. The reason I could come out was because of Celian's faith supporting me. It was still okay when I was in the Page World. The Destiny system couldn't be activated in the Page World, so it gave me some space to move. But now I am back. Back, and then the Destiny system will perform a self-check. Madanzo sighed. Celion, when she just came back, her Destiny system was already connected. I'm afraid that the source of her faith has changed. Fortunately, Celion can't wake up now. Otherwise, she might have a mental breakdown because she was judged as a heretic by the Destiny system. Then you, Nan Shounen couldn't help but frown, will disappear, not to the extent of disappearing. Madanzo shook her head. At most, I will hide in the Destiny system's interlayer. Anyway, I've been like this all these years, so I won't die. Is there no other way? Nan Xiaonan asked curiously. Madanzo shrugged. Unless someone can completely believe in me like Celion and not be discovered by the destiny system, there's a slight chance that I can continue to wander around. As she said, Madanzo suddenly looked at Nan Xiaonan. It was too difficult to satisfy these two conditions at the same time. Everyone who was born in the Holy Light Kingdom was born with the destiny system, so it was impossible to find someone who did not have the destiny system to believe in it. This was the ultimate reason why it had been hiding in the interlayer of the destiny system. After all, it used to be one of the 7 capitals, but after it died, St. John took over and changed all of its beliefs. This meant that it was no longer a saint in the Holy Light Kingdom. Thinking about it makes me so angry. Why was it that we were all saints and we all risked our lives for the kingdom of heaven? Why did it have to be killed for no reason? Why was there no seraph to hold a resurrection ceremony for it on Good Friday? St. Joan and I are just 2 lumps of fat on our upper bodies and a hole in our lower bodies, okay? Senior, even if you look at me like this, I can't believe in you, right? Nan Xiaonan shook her head. I have a master. Everything I have belongs to my master. He is my only belief. I will give all my love to him. Dog Nan. At this time, in Madanzo's heart, Nan Xiaonan had officially been promoted to Dog Nan. This guy did not respond to the pink storm of the chilly winter princess. Who else would it love other than itself? This was just an excuse. Madanzo did not expect to get Nan Xiaonan's belief. It just looked at Nan Xiaonan with a smile and said, "Oh, do you really love your master so much?" "Of course. I can't wait to hand over everything I have." Nan Xiaonan raised her nose and looked at Madanzo sad. It was so King cool. "Oh, Lady Nan, you can't wait to hand over what?" I didn't hear clearly. Miss Maid's voice sounded like a ghost behind Nan Xiaonan. "Can you say it again? I'm very curious." Nan Xiaonan instantly widened her eyes and looked at Madanzo's smirk at this time. "Dog Nan Xiaonan." "Madanzo, Dog Nan. Miss Yi, you also came out." Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. At this time, she was determined to fool her. Even if she would be punished in the future, it was better than dying on the spot. "Don't you want to accompany the boss more? Master still has something to do." Miss Maid said indifferently, "I will deal with the matters in the free city." Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but open her mouth. Is the boss still trying to conquer the page world in Book of Gaia? Does he still need a strategy? Metatron, how do you feel now? Miss Maid ignored Nan Xiaonan at this time and looked directly at Madanzo and asked, "Relatively bad, very bad?" Madanzo shook her head and said, "My connection with the main consciousness is cut off. Something seems to have happened inside the destiny system. I can't go back." Miss Maid thought for a while and waved her hand. A golden key appeared in her palm, and then she inserted it into the air and made a twisting movement. An incredible thing happened. The moment the key was twisted, a tiny crack appeared in the air, and then it opened like a door. "What's this?" Nan Xiaonan looked at it in surprise. Madanzo said, "The backstage key of the Destiny system. Didn't I tell you that this guy used to be the chief designer of the Destiny system? She can enter the core of the Destiny system at will. This is the ultimate authority of Joan of Arc." Nan Xiaonan's fear of Miss Maid increased by 1 point. It was not easy to enter the kingdom of heaven. It was like spending a lot of manpower and material resources to build the strongest vault, but the back door of the vault was always in the hands of an outsider. At this time, Miss Maid didn't enter the door, but stood in front of the door and even frowned. "Why did he go in?" Madanzo asked, puzzled. "It's rejecting me." Miss Maid whispered, "This child is resisting me." Just as she finished speaking, the backstage door that had been opened was closed instantly. Not only that, the golden key was broken at this time. A strange look flashed in Miss Maid's eyes, and then she looked at Madanzo expressionlessly. Madanzo suddenly shuddered and said, "Don't look at me like that. This is the core of the Destiny system. You should know that the wind of the rain wood, written by me, can't be invaded." Miss Maid just answered softly and picked up the key without saying anything. Nan Xiaonan said, "You Missy, if the key is broken, you can't open the backstage, right?" Miss Maid said indifferently, I have 10 backup keys and one final key, so it doesn't matter if only one key is broken. Nan Xiaonan suddenly blinked and exclaimed, "Good girl." Metatro, on the other hand, looked like he had been dealt a heavy blow. He muttered to himself, "You bastard. How many back doors did you leave behind? What you're doing is making things very difficult for us pirates." Okay. Into this chapter. Chapter 2340. Although Miss Maid had the key to end the system, Madanzo believed that she wouldn't use it easily. The disaster caused by stopping the Destiny system was too great. It was equivalent to driving all the people of the Holy Light Kingdom crazy. Within the scope of the contract, the shop needed to maintain the existence of the Holy Light Kingdom, not destroy it. Of course, this was only a consideration. Madanzo believed that with Miss Maid's character, she had the courage to push everything aside and re-establish a new order. After all, this woman was the one who started the revolution. The main reason why she didn't directly end the Destiny system was probably because she wanted to find out who the mastermind was. She, who had the backstage core key, was actually rejected by the backstage. It was like her own child being instigated by someone else. This was an extremely serious provocation. I don't know who is so stubborn. Madanzo whispered quietly. Then, she was startled and blurted out, "Ligel, say." "Madanzo, what did you say?" Nan Xiaonan had sharp ears and asked in confusion, "What Ligel?" "Ligel is also one of the Seraphs," Miss Maid said indifferently. "He is also one of the main creators of the Destiny system. Currently, he is mainly responsible for monitoring the data of the Destiny system." "Isn't he the Internet Surveillance Bureau?" Nan Xiaonan blinked. "Madanzo, do you mean that all of this was done by Seraph Ligel?" "I don't know." Madanzo shook her head. "The moment the backstage door closed, my main consciousness should have found an opportunity to send out this message, but it was immediately cut off. What I received was only the prompt of Ligel." "Cut off?" Nan Xiaonan opened her mouth and frowned. "Miss Yi, why don't you try using another key?" "No need," Miss Maid said calmly. "You can ask Ligel directly." "Metatron, your consciousness is stuck in the interlayer of the Destiny system like a worm. Don't tell me you don't have any thoughts about Ligel. Can you take back the word vermin?" Madanzo rolled her eyes and shook her head, "But it just so happens that there are some things I want to ask it about, while I still have some time now." Miss Maid was silent for a while before she frowned and said, "How long can you hold on?" Madanzo looked at Miss Maid awkwardly and said, "Selin gave up everything to believe in me. This child's belief is very advanced, comparable to that of a real saint. So I can still stay here for a while, about 3 or 4 hours. Don't hit me." As soon as he finished speaking, Madanzo immediately squatted down with her head in her hands. Miss Maid said indifferently, "Metatron, why would I hit you?" Madanzo cried, "There are a lot of believers in the Holy Light Kingdom, and there are pure petitioners every year. However, there are only a few who can truly become holy disciples. Serene originally believed in a free saint. I didn't mean to steal your man. I really didn't have a choice at that time. I can prove this point." Madanzo only wanted to save Serene. Nan Xiaonan suddenly spoke, looking as if she was going to sacrifice herself for a righteous cause. Madanzo looked at Nan Xiaonan in surprise. "Dog Nan?" Miss Maid said expressionlessly. "Since it's to save her, then there's no other way. After all, my master likes Miss Serene very much." This expression, Madanzo couldn't help but swallow her saliva. "Am I hopeless? I'm no longer a free saint," Miss Maid said indifferently. "It has nothing to do with me who the people in the free city believe in. Don't be like this. It's very difficult for me. Everyone in the Holy Kingdom knows that you're very vengeful." Madanzo braced herself and said, "Can you wake Selene up?" "I'll correct her belief." Miss Maid said indifferently, "I don't like things that have been used by others." "That's it. What the F***CK did you say just now?" Madanzo's mouth twitched. Obviously, she was used to this kind of attitude. So she shook her head and said, "Let's not talk about this first. What are you going to do now? Find Lagire directly? It should be in the palace of the second day. You know, Lagire's position is quite special, so it can't leave easily. If you want to find it, you can only go to the palace of the second day. No need, Miss Maid said indifferently. It's already in the holy light kingdom. It also came? Madanzo was shocked. Why didn't it sense Legire's arrival? Did it happen when they were swallowed into the Book of Gaia? Miss Maid suddenly looked at Nan Xiaonan and said, Lady Nan, Metatron still has a little bit of value. Nan Xiaonan. She didn't understand why Miss Maid suddenly said this to her, and she said it in Madanzo's face, so mean, you can believe in it for the time being. Miss Maid said indifferently, let it exist for a few more minutes. What the F***CK? Nan Xiaonan instantly widened her eyes. Let her believe in Madanzo for the time being. Didn't that mean she... Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked at Madanzo, who rubbed her hands and smiled. She wanted to struggle, but Miss Maid didn't give her any chance. Yi waved her hand, and the enchantment that sealed the venue of the Holy Maiden ceremony quietly opened a gap. You can go out now. Not far away, Asakes, Kay, or Lily, and Isha, who were in a mess because of their social life, kept silent since Miss Maid appeared. They felt a headache. They couldn't understand, but they understood the last sentence. It seemed that they could leave the studio. But did they really have to go out? Asakes opened his mouth. He was already a vampire. How could he face the outside world? In the City of Freedom, somewhere far away from the venue of the Holy Maiden ceremony, towards the densely populated residential buildings, Miss Assman was running through the alleys in a mess. Someone was chasing after her. They were Balaam's subordinates, a group of people who were willing to become Balaam's tools under the effect of the holy water. They were the sacred power users from the land of sin. The sacred power users had all kinds of strange abilities. No one was absolutely powerful as long as the ability was used in the right environment. Miss Assman's heart was pounding. She was bitten by Balaam's straw, and a new type of holy water was injected into her body. Now, it was eroding her spirit, and it was extremely uncomfortable. If it wasn't for the existence of the magical crystal shoe that allowed her to transform continuously with magic, she would have been captured by Balaam's subordinates. Even so, Miss Assman felt that she couldn't hold on for too long. The transformation of the crystal shoe depended on her mental stability most of the time. Because of the holy water, her spirit became extremely unstable, and the duration of her transformation became shorter and shorter. There were even situations where the transformation failed. In such a terrible situation, Miss Assman could only ask for help from the people in the organization. They had a special way of contacting each other. Found her. She's here. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky above. The person was like a spider, hanging down, and his hand like a mantis's. Soon, in the narrow alley, a few other sacred power users found her. Miss Assman was blocked from the front and back. She leaned against the wall, and only then could she stand firm. The Grand President has ordered us to kill her. The sacred power user who hung down let out a sinister laugh, and his blade-like arm swung directly at Miss Assman's neck. She wanted to dodge, but her body couldn't move because her shadow had been restrained by another sacred power user who had the ability to control shadows. I can't accept this. Miss Assman closed her eyes. Even in the environment of the City of God Blessing, she survived. She didn't expect that just as she returned to the familiar City of Freedom, she would face such a deadly situation. In the name of justice, Judge. The darkness lit up, and in the midst of despair, a ray of light flashed. The sacred power users in the alley who were illuminated by the light instantly screamed, and then they lost consciousness and fainted on the ground. A handsome young man in white, wearing round-rimmed glasses, slowly walked over. He walked in front of Miss Assman, but he saw that Miss Assman's face was pale and big drops of cold sweat were dripping down. Her face was almost distorted from the pain. The young man suddenly scratched his head. Sorry, I forgot that the judgment doesn't discriminate. Looks like you also lack justice in your heart. Miss Assman almost fainted. She had seen people save people, but she had never seen people save people like this. The handsome young man with the round-rimmed glasses retracted the light, and Miss Assman felt better and directly sat on the ground. Miss Assman took 2 deep breaths and frowned. My code name is Aurora. May I ask who you are? The young man with the round-rimmed glasses squatted down and looked at Miss Assman curiously. He thought for a while and said, "The Aurora you mentioned should be the code names you use in the Outer Gods organization, right? It looks like you are asking for help. But I'm sorry, I'm not one of you." "You're not?" Miss Assman was shocked. If he wasn't one of the organization, how did he know about the existence of the Outer Gods organization? "You can call me Raquel." The young man with the round-rimmed glasses smiled slightly. "You are." Miss Assman opened her eyes wide subconsciously. The young man with the round-rimmed glasses put his finger on his lips and made a shushing gesture. "Don't be so loud. You'll be discovered. I'm currently absent from work." Miss Assman felt a headache coming on. Why would Raquel appear in the Holy Light Nation? Raquel was not a saint of the Holy Light Nation. Although he was also a blazing angel, he did not reside in the palace of blazing heaven. He was special. He was stationed alone in the palace of the second heaven, supervising all the angels in the kingdom of heaven. To put it bluntly, he was the spy chief of the kingdom of heaven. You know about the Outer Gods organization?" Miss Assman said with a trembling voice. The young man with the round-rimmed glasses. Raquel smiled slightly and said, "After all, I have nothing else to do except watch the surveillance every day. But don't worry, I didn't tell the guys in charge of the 7 capitals about your existence." Why? Miss Assman showed a look of disbelief. Raquel said, "The days of watching the surveillance are very boring and boring. In such boring days, I will try my best to find something that can let me pass the time. Miss Assman, I'm very grateful to you for bringing some interesting scenes to my boring days." Miss Assman opened her mouth and finally smiled bitterly. "So, your arrival this time is because we can no longer provide you with a source of happiness? Finally, you want to quietly erase us?" Raquel shook his head and said, "Although you are the reincarnation of the Outer Gods, you are just a group of guys who huddle together for warmth. In fact, for so many years, you have not done anything too out of line, except this time. However, I didn't come this time because of you. I was just entrusted by someone to investigate something." "Who?" Miss Assman asked subconsciously, but she did not expect that the other party would answer her question. However, Raquel said, "An old friend of mine, but something strange happened in the middle. I can't remember who this old friend of mine is. Or, I secretly looked at that old friend, but I feel that he doesn't seem to be the one I know." Miss Assman showed an expression that she could not understand. "It's hard to understand, right?" Raquel smiled slightly and said, "I'm also confused now. So, I can only wander around here and look for clues." Miss Assman was about to say something, but her face suddenly twisted, and her whole body emitted a blazing aura. Her skin began to crack, and turbid white flames emerged. She wailed and rolled on the ground. However, her twisted expression quickly changed, and she actually revealed a strange and satisfied smile. Raquel opened his mouth in surprise and then flicked his finger. The turbid white flames that emerged from Miss Assman's body gradually shrank back in her body, and the cracked skin gradually recovered. Her strange and satisfied smile gradually disappeared and was replaced by deep fear. "Just now Miss Assman panted, and when she looked at Raquel again, there was a trace of gratitude. "Is this the holy water?" Raquel blinked and said, "It feels more like the white terror. You guys are really outstanding. You guys actually created something like this in the Valley of Sin. However, this is probably because of Balaam himself. After all, Balaam's predecessor was a certain great old dominator." Miss Assman smiled bitterly. The angel who oversaw the kingdom of heaven was too terrifying. In the entire kingdom of holy light, there was probably nothing that could be hidden from him. Suddenly, Miss Assman was shocked, and Raquel directly carried her up. "It's not convenient for you to move now, right?" Raquel smiled and said, "Don't worry. Angels have no gender, so don't be shy." Is this the problem? Chapter 2341. Note, Mr. Rainy, the idiotic netizen. Mr. Rainy Day, an idiotic netizen, sent a message. "Rainy, how is it? Did you comfort your brother?" "Little sister, I don't think so. I heard that it's best to take off your clothes before you get into bed. I didn't. I have mixed feelings. Rainy, taking off your clothes would be the worst, right? Little sister, oh, I'm disappointed. That night at Bluebird radio station, or rather, that very night, the two of them had inexplicably met. Before the program ended, they had added each other as friends in the chat room. Rainy, don't be discouraged. The most important thing for you now is to stay calm. Your brother doesn't want to see you worry about him. Or do you want to do it again tonight? Little sister, I'm going to the newly opened beach this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Rainy, I know. The newly opened beach has a half-price discount. That's great. The scenery at the beach in summer must be amazing. Little sister, you can go too. It's a good opportunity to date the one you like. Suggestion. Rainy, I haven't seen her today. Little sister, your goddess hasn't come to work today? Confused. Rainy, she's here, but I haven't seen her yet. I have to go work now. Talk to you later. Rainy left the chat room. Ms. Ching Tian, you're here too. Lilith smiled and said, it just so happens that I have some work matters to discuss with you. During lunch break, in the school cafeteria, the extremely popular teacher Lilith was always surrounded by many students. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Fairsky to find an opportunity to talk to her, but Lilith had taken the initiative to talk to her. Teacher Fairsky, who was engrossed in her meal, couldn't help but feel flattered. For a moment, she forgot to respond. Miss Ching Tian, do me a favor. I just want to eat my lunch in peace, Lily said in a low voice. Oh, yes. I was just about to talk to you about the exam. Ching Tian nodded and said, let's talk while we eat. The students were too embarrassed to stay and left. Thank you, Mr. Ching Tian. It's nothing. It's just that you're too popular, Lily. That might not be a good thing, Lily said faintly. She seems to be troubled. Is there something wrong with her life? Was it emotional? Chington had always thought of herself as a delicate person. At this time, looking at Miss Lily's perfect face, she couldn't help but blurt out, Miss Lily, do you want to go to the beach? Seaside? Lily was surprised. Ching Tian had already regretted her impulsiveness. At this time, she had to bite the bullet and said, yes, the beach. I heard that this weekend there will be a newly built beach. I think that the pressure of teaching is quite heavy. Maybe it's good to go to the beach to change the mood and so on. Of course, if you don't have time, you don't have to go. Of course. It's more appropriate to go to the beach with a boyfriend. Okay. Really? Ching Tian clapped her hands and suddenly stood up, opening her eyes in disbelief. Lily stroked her hair and said, I haven't been to the beach for a long time. I'm looking forward to it. The beach? Was the area outside the town already open? She really wanted to go to the beach to find out. The main thing was that she didn't know how long she would stay in this page world. Maybe the changes in the page world could bring her some new opportunities. Note, Mr. Rainy, the silly netizen. Rainy, she promised me. The beach. Youthful. Mimi. Congratulations, Rainy. You don't seem to think highly of her? Didn't you suggest that I invite her? Mimi. I'm thinking. Rainy. Is it about your brother? Mimi. I'm buying swimsuits online, but I can't find the style I like. I'm hesitating. Rainy. At your age, you could try the cute style. I heard that the school's swimsuit style is very popular recently. Speaking of which, if you go to the beach, will you run into them? Mimi. I don't want to meet her. Seriously. Rainy. Don't worry. I'm only interested in mature women. You'll probably have to wait for another 10 years. If the innate hardware isn't good, then I'll have to wait for another 10 years in vain. Mimi, dirty, angry. Mimi exited the chat room. Who made you angry? Boss Luo asked curiously. The girl angrily rushed out of the room, barefooted, and went straight to the refrigerator. She unscrewed a carton of milk, put her hands on her hips, and started drinking. She looked like a 40-something-year-old uncle. I was angered by a silly netizen. The girl snorted and walked back into the room. The phone rang at this time. It was a call from Lilith. Maybe it was inconvenient, or she didn't have the courage to face Boss Luo. Miss Lily, good evening. Do you know that the beach bathing area is about to open? I've been paying attention to the advertisement on TV. Lily was silent for a moment. Is the area outside the town really going to open? Are you the one behind this? Boss Luo said indifferently. I'm also waiting to see if it will open. I can't say I'm behind it, but I'm just trying. She really wanted to ask him how he did it, but when she thought about the man's strange methods, she lost the courage. In the apartment, Lilith's fingers were twirling the long telephone cord, but her eyes were staring unblinkingly at the crystal ball on the table, and she continued to maintain her silence. Anything else? Boss Luo suddenly asked. Lilith gritted her teeth and said, Are you free this weekend? I want to invite you to the seaside, mainly to explore the newly opened area. From a certain point of view, we can be considered as partners, right? I'll go, Boss Luo said indifferently. Lily asked curiously, You'll bring your sister? Of course. Boss Luo smiled, because we are brother and sister. So, Lily thought for a while, and then smiled gently like a lover. I'll also look forward to meeting you this weekend. Then, good night, Miss Lily. Boss Luo hung up the phone directly. Suddenly rejected, Lily didn't feel disappointed or even angry. There were many people who were not tempted by her in the palace of blazing sky. She was just testing the bottom line of this man little by little. Men and women were supposed to be equal. Both sides were in a game relationship, and the winner and loser were determined after the game. It wasn't decided by the creator from the moment of birth which side was in a dominant position. But so far, Lily hadn't seen the dawn of victory in this game. The chances were so slim that she was about to lose confidence. In fact, she had already lost all her composure. Her overall plan had been messed up. Now, she was trapped in this unfinished page like a prisoner, losing all contact with the outside world. But from Boss Luo's words, Lily roughly guessed the situation in the free cities from the moment she learned that Kerrigan had been killed. It should be about to surface soon, right? I can walk on my own, Miss Assman suddenly said. Raquel put her down without any hesitation. Assman, your shoes are very special. Can you let me have a look? Assman was silent for a moment before she gritted her teeth and said without caring about her image, I sweated a lot. Raquel scratched his head and said, When he created humans, he didn't consider this point. Let me have a look if there is a chance. Miss Assman pretended that she did not hear anything. She muttered, Will Balam's Saint ability users come after us? Raquel smiled and said, Although I'm not a combat angel, I won't let a few sacred ability users track me down. Don't worry, it's still safe for now. Still, Assman couldn't help but frown. Such a tone made her faintly uneasy. Raquel shrugged and said helplessly, Because there are people thousands of times more powerful than those sacred ability users who have their eyes on me. Thousands of times more powerful than sacred ability users? Miss Assman couldn't help but widen her eyes. She could hear the helplessness in the seraph's words. In other words, even Raquel, the owner of the palace of the second day, couldn't do anything about this situation. Just as she was about to say something, she saw that Raquel's eyes were no longer on her. Instead, he was looking somewhere. Assman turned around and followed Raquel's gaze. Jahan. She almost blurted out a certain name, but she quickly stopped. It wasn't Jahan. She was more mature than Jahan. She was so mature that she was complete. The moment she saw her, Miss Assman understood what the most perfect state of a saint in Domremy village was like when they were creating a new saint. It's you. It's you? How could it be you? Miss Assman's voice had a touch of disbelief. She had seen this woman several times. In Dong Remy village, in the clothing store, she had seen this woman. Why couldn't she connect the dots? Miss May didn't even look at Assman. She just walked straight to Raquel and said indifferently, Long time no see, Raquel. It's really been a long time. Raquel avoided Miss Maid's gaze as if he wasn't used to it. He said embarrassedly, Well, can you not get so close to me? My muscles are terrified. Miss Maid was silent for a while. She didn't move forward or back away. She just said calmly, Since you have descended, you must have noticed the abnormality of the destiny system. Raquel took half a step back and nodded. Actually, before the incident, John came to me. He asked me to help investigate the system logs of several believers who were involved in the holy water case in the Free City. John, Miss Maid frowned. Raquel said, Don't you feel strange? I feel the same. Miss Maid shook her head. It's okay. Just take it as John. Then what happened? Raquel said the system logs of those believers involved in the case had traces of being rewritten. This would be related to the authority of the saints of the Holy Light Kingdom. John didn't want to be alarmed, so he asked me to investigate in private. Miss Maid thought for a while and said, "When did you descend?" "Before the commotion at the Holy Maiden ceremony." Lacour shrugged and said, "I saw that John was also swallowed. I was going to help it secretly, but when I saw that you seemed to be involved, I didn't do anything about it. After all, you can always solve problems well." "Did you find anything?" Miss Maid asked directly. But Laurel said, "Before I answer you, I want to know, who are you to ask me this question in what capacity? You, the saint who was once free? Or the dispatcher of the shop?" "The creator of the destiny system," Miss Maid said calmly. "Is this identity okay?" "It's not a question of whether it's okay or not." Raquel couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Or rather, I can't refuse. After all, I'm afraid that you'll suddenly take things too hard and shut down the destiny system." Miss Maid glanced at Raquel with a blank expression. Raquel scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, I haven't seen you for a long time, so I'm a bit long-winded. Then, let's get to the point." Miss Maid nodded lightly. She suddenly glanced at Miss Assman, who didn't do anything wrong. She thought for a while and said, "Miss Assman, you can also listen to what I'm going to say next." Assman, she was even more at a loss. She had already discovered the true identity of Miss Maid. When we were in Dong Remy village, you were always there, right?" she asked with a trembling voice. Miss Maid said calmly, "The idea of dragon witch is not bad. I believe that you can't set it up alone. If it's possible, please ask the one behind you to come out. Otherwise, we'll have to waste time and take the initiative to visit." So powerful, Miss Assman couldn't help but gulp. I'll try." Miss Assman heaved a sigh of relief. It has never truly appeared, but it has displayed its unparalleled control in the dark. Miss Maid glanced at her casually and then looked at Raquel. "Go ahead." Raquel had obviously organized his words. "First, there's a piece of bad news. Except for the core area of the destiny system, the entire system has been taken over by another algorithm." Miss Maid said calmly, "As long as the core hasn't been breached, it's not bad news. You're still as confident as ever." Raquel smiled bitterly. "Next, there's another piece of bad news. I found Metatron's consciousness in the system's mezzanine. That guy's current condition isn't very good." At this moment, a slightly immature voice suddenly sounded behind Raquel. "Oh, in that case, doesn't it mean that I have the possibility to go against the main consciousness and become the host? Has Metatron's main consciousness died?" Raquel turned around and saw a toddler who was only as tall as his calf. The toddler had a pacifier in his mouth and was walking with difficulty. "You are..." Raquel opened his mouth in surprise. "Who are you?" "Medanzo." The toddler rolled his eyes cutely. His eyes were full of resentment. "But why are you?" Raquel was astonished. He didn't feel anything in his heart and even wanted to laugh. "Because of the inferior belief of an inferior believer." Medanzo's childish voice was full of endless resentment. Not far away, a certain child suddenly shivered and continued to nag. "Ah, the great holy light Medanzo, I praise you. Ah, the great holy light Medanzo, I respect and love you. How much longer do I have to recite?" Chapter 2342. Little Medanzo didn't stand for long. Perhaps it was because it was tired, so it sat on the ground directly. After a while, Nan Xiaonan walked up with a look of disgust and hugged it in her arms. It had been like this for most of the time. At this time, Ligel covered its mouth with both hands and tried its best to endure. Medanzo rolled its eyes fiercely. "Laugh if you want to. Everyone knows how bad your character is. You don't have to pretend." Therefore, Ligel pointed at little Medanzo and laughed out loud. "Is this really your old friend?" Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but asked quietly. Medanzo said, "Don't talk. Focus on praying, you fake believer." What a perfunctory and inferior belief. If it had known this would happen, it would have just disappeared. As the former secretary of the Kingdom of Heaven, how could it be so shameless? But this small interlude didn't interrupt the conversation. Ligel's evil mockery stopped abruptly when Miss Maid coughed quietly. Ligel adjusted its glasses slightly and said seriously, Metatron has been caught by the Destiny system. Strictly speaking, Medanzo wasn't equal to Metatron. Its existence was similar to Nan Xiaonan's. They were both consciousness split from the main body. Medanzo's body size wasn't enough to withstand the complete will of Metatron. However, in the Book of Gaia, the connection between the inside and outside was completely isolated, which allowed Medanzo's temporary independence. Under normal circumstances, there wouldn't be a situation where a split consciousness knew more than the main consciousness. However, because of the Book of Gaia, Medanzo, as a split consciousness, collected more information than the main body, Metatron. Of course, it didn't know some things that happened to the main body, Metatron, after it entered the Book of Gaia. However, Medanzo actually wanted to turn the tables and replace the main body, Metatron. He did not know if she was joking or if she really had such intentions. Hearing this, Medanzo spat out her pacifier and said, Wasn't it hiding in the mezzanine all this time? How did the system suddenly catch it? The mezzanine has been breached. Raquel shook his head and said, Originally, the mezzanine didn't exist. It was something I created on the spot. The Destiny system has the ability to learn and evolve independently to a certain extent, so it's only a matter of time before it breaks through the mezzanine. I see. Medanzo nodded, and then her expression changed slightly. Wait, what did you say? You created the interlayer? Ligel was stunned. That's right. You won't suddenly die, right? I saw that your lonely soul was quite pitiful, so I temporarily stuffed your soul into the mezzanine. Don't you know? I don't know. I thought you were angry because Heavenly State canceled your 7 capitals and even erased your traces. So you didn't look for me. I don't King know. Medanzo jumped up and said, Besides, when you threw me into the mezzanine, couldn't you have left me some last words or something? Nothing at all. Even the church in the mezzanine was dug out by me bit by bit from the system's data. Ligel opened his mouth and smiled bitterly. Metatron, you also participated in the development of the Destiny system, right? Don't you know whether the Destiny system has a mezzanine or not? Since there's suddenly an additional mezzanine, don't you suspect its origin? In the entire Heavenly State, there are only a few people who have the ability to create an independent area in the Destiny system. Why don't you think about it? Medanzo was furious. How the CK do I know that this mezzanine was not created by Jean? Don't tell me that there aren't many strange hidden snow areas left behind by Saint Joan of Arc in the Destiny system. A sneer was heard. In that case, it's my responsibility. I'm really sorry. Medanzo instantly shivered and swallowed her saliva. Okay, I'm stupid. Ligel slightly restrained himself and coughed awkwardly. John asked me to investigate the holy water incident and also asked me to find Metatron's consciousness at the same time. Actually, there are other intentions. What do you mean? Metatro asked in annoyance. Ligel said, Not long ago, there was a large-scale invasion of Heavenly State by a Transcendence organization. In this incident, many angels were swept into the space vortex. Some were thrown into the depths of the void and are probably dead. Some were scattered in the subworlds. Speak human language. Medanzo glared at him, but he was too cute at this moment. He stared at Ligel with a feeling of come and hug me. Ligel said, Let's put it this way. Among these scattered angels, there's actually a special one. Its name is also Metatron. Medanzo's expression changed slightly, while Miss Maid frowned. Nan Xiaonan was dumbfounded and asked in confusion, Why is there another Metatron? Ligel said, At the same time, when Metatron suddenly died, a new angel was born in the reincarnation pool of Heavenly State and was recognized as a special one. When everyone thought that the new special one was Metatron's reincarnation, I accidentally discovered the soul of another Metatron. I felt that this matter was a little strange, so I hid this soul from the other seraphs. Medanzo frowned and shook her head. I don't feel split. The new angel you're talking about isn't me. Although the situation is terrible, I know that my myth hasn't split. Wait, could it be? Miss Maid said, since the reincarnation pool recognized you as a special one, it should be your power as a pseudo-canon myth. What is a pseudo-canon? Nan Xiaonan asked subconsciously. Madanzo smiled bitterly. Let's put it this way. If the history of heavenly state that you know is the official history, then the pseudo-canon is like an unofficial history. But between the official history and the pseudo-history, no one can say which is the real history. It's just that what most people can recognize is the official history. Nan Xiaonan was not a virgin. She was a witch who had transcended a subworld. What's the difference? No matter if it's the official history or the pseudo-history, the legend has been unified. It's not the same. Legel sighed and said, generally, the legends are unified, just like what you said, but there are still some exceptions. Let's put it this way. In all the legends of heavenly state, he is omnipotent and unique. He is the Trinity of Son of God, Holy Father, and Holy Spirit. He is the origin of everything. All the angels are his children. Even in the pseudo-canon, his uniqueness is absolute. It should be so. However, in a certain pseudo-canon, Medellin is described as an existence slightly higher than Son of God. So, do you understand? Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but widen her eyes and look at Madanzo in surprise. You're really born rebellious? The legend is fabricated. It's not my decision. Madanzo said angrily. There will always be boring people with boring fantasies. Can I control all the thoughts of humans? Nan Xiaonan sighed. That's why I said that you believers are especially troublesome. Believers? Pray for me. I'm going to disappear again. Madanzo fiercely bit Nan Xiaonan's palm. Miss Maid waved her hand at this time, and Madanzo immediately stopped. She looked at Raquel and thought for a while. Raquel, how did Medellin die? Raquel shook her head and said, at that time, you hadn't been handed over. Ahem, you were still in heavenly state. Didn't you find anything? Miss Maid said indifferently, at that time, I should be attacking the Celtic gods and not in the Holy Light Kingdom. Oh, is that so? I must have remembered wrongly. Raquel thought for a while and said, in fact, the fall of Medellin has always been a mystery. It even led to the collapse of the 7 capitals and then affected the entire Holy Light Kingdom. After Father repaired everything, he forbade further investigation of this matter. Although we were also investigating, we could only investigate secretly. But as time passed, we could find less and less things. The traces are almost gone. Senior, don't tell me that because you were born to be a traitor, the master of heavenly state killed you? Nan Xiaonan quietly whispered at this time. However, Madanzo's eyes suddenly shot out 2 holy lights. Nan Xiaonan instantly screamed, had a splitting headache, and knelt on the ground. As a believer of Madanzo at this time, she was very much subjected to the punishment of the believers. Raquel's eyes were slightly fierce, but she didn't speak. Miss Maid said indifferently, Lady Nan, be careful with your words. Nan Xiaonan stood up trembling. Madanzo's attitude toward the master of heavenly state was somewhat unexpected. Madanzo sighed at this time. Let's not talk about the anomalies for now. Raquel, Jean opened the backstage once, and I received a message from Medellin asking me to look for you. What's the matter? Raquel said seriously, although Medellin was caught by the system, it also caught one thing. That is, the authority of the destiny system is being transferred. Miss Maid frowned and said, that level of transfer? Raquel said, at present, I'm afraid that except for the few of us who still have the authority, all the saints' authority has been stripped, and a new authority is being formed. Once this authority is formed, the destiny system will welcome a new master. Miss Maid pondered and didn't speak. Raquel said, Jean, you haven't really entered the backstage, right? Miss Maid nodded. Raquel said, if you enter, you will realize that except for the area that you reserve for yourself, the entire destiny system is now like an empty shell. A new system has been born, and it's swallowing everything of the original destiny system. And this new system is almost completed. Why did you only realize it now? Madanzo was shocked. How do you work as the Internet Surveillance Bureau? Raquel smiled bitterly and said, "Supervising the destiny system is only part of my job. I still have to supervise the entire angel corps. You seraphs all want to go to war. If it weren't for the transcendence this time, how many seraphs would there be in heavenly state? I'm the only one working overtime in the palace of the second day. Okay, I've been working overtime for thousands of years. Is there really no trace of it before this?" Miss Maid asked calmly. Raquel shook his head and said, "I didn't do a detailed check. Originally, this system was designed by you, and it's been working very well. I know that you won't really harm the Holy Light Kingdom, so I've always been at ease. Even though it's been so many years, and some people really want to get rid of your influence on the Destiny system, it's a pity that even Metatron can't do it with his rainforest wind. Furthermore, the more they want the Destiny system to be independent from you, the more loopholes appear in the Destiny system. You should already know about the Land of Sin, right? Actually, later on, they also know that there's no way to separate the Destiny system from your influence. So they almost gave up this idea. Sigh. I can only say that it's because the Destiny system is too perfect that I've become lazy. Now, it's too late to check." Miss May thought for a while and said, "How much authority do you have left?" Raquel said, "I only have the authority to walk freely. I'm afraid that only you can shut down the core now. The new system needs to swallow the original core to be completed. As long as you shut down the core, then we can reinstall the system, and it should be erased. I won't shut down the system." Miss Maid shook her head. Raquel frowned and said, "This is equivalent to giving away the Destiny system for free." Miss Maid said indifferently, "If I shut down the Destiny system now, you won't be able to gather enough willpower. Raquel, have you forgotten who's the real master of the kingdom of heaven?" Raquel's expression changed slightly. "Jean, what are you doing?" Miss Maid said expressionlessly, "I'm sorry. Shutting down the system will only cause a lot of losses to my master. Of course, if you can't pay enough willpower and use the seraph as compensation, I can consider your suggestion and shut down the system. But can you make the decision?" Raquel gasped fiercely. Damn it. Had Joan of Arc really been abducted? Was she a traitor? The script shouldn't be like this, right? Wasn't the script. Although the child was stranded outside due to family conflicts and had resentment against her family, she still had her family in her heart. When her family was in trouble, she would still be willing to help. Only I can solve my own conflicts, and no outsider can interfere. Jean, you should be this kind of Mary Sue setting. Medanzo sneered at this time. Silly, this Jean has already... Woo-woo. This time, Nan Xiaonan risked universal condemnation and covered its mouth fiercely. Senior, I don't want to die yet. At this time, a beam of black light instantly fell from the sky and directly entered the venue of the Holy Maiden's ceremony. How come it's ahead of time? Raquel's expression changed slightly. Obviously, the strange change at this time was completely beyond his expectation. At the same time, Miss Maid looked up with a rare, gloomy face. She saw the black inverted cross was circling crazily, and a lot of black willpower began to emerge from the people in the free city. A figure slowly appeared within the black pillar of light. I was born from the hellfire. I'm the overlord of freedom. Mortals, worship me. The figure gradually became clear. On the ground, Nan Xiaonan loosened her hands, and Medanzo fell directly to the ground. She looked at the figure walking out of the black light beam in disbelief. This is the dragon which from Dongrami village. Impossible. The dragon, which has clearly been the dragon which had been torn apart by Miss Maid with her bare hands. It's the will of the free city. Medanzo said in surprise. The saint has been resurrected, and this resurrection ceremony uses the faith of the free city. Seraphs originally planned to reshape the status of a new saint. That's why they used this image. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked at Miss Maid. Miss Maid disappeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 2343. In front of the statue of the Saint of Freedom in the Freedom City's Holy Light Square. The statue was half destroyed. When the saint died and the heavens and earth wept, it had already collapsed. No one had the time to clean it up, so it was impossible for anyone to clean it up. In fact, there were only cordons guarding the scene. At this moment, a young man and another person wrapped in bandages were approaching the half-destroyed statue of the saint. They were Laval and the person he brought out from the hospital with burns all over his body. This person was suspicious. He seemed to be related to the self-immolation cases that happened in the Freedom City. More importantly, this person was the person that the president of the city of Dawn, Balaam, wanted to kill. If it wasn't for the message from Asak's and Ludic's quick reaction, this person would have become food for the rats in the sewers of the Freedom City. Almost all of the candidates for the Saintess are dead. Laval took a deep breath. He had been watching this terrifying live stream. He had always been proud of his calmness, but now he had reached his limit. Why did you bring me here? His intuition told him that this person was suspicious. Otherwise, he would have been at the venue of the Saintess ceremony, trying to save this person. Robert was the name of this person covered in burns. According to Asash's intelligence, this person was called Robert. Ludic's business was very big. He had many businesses in the city of Dawn, so Ludic's intelligence network was very developed. As Ludic's only private secretary, Laval had the power to mobilize the intelligence network as he wished. He easily found out that there was indeed a person named Robert among the bodyguards of President Balaam. However, Laval's intuition told him that this heavily injured person wasn't the real Robert. Perhaps he just happened to use this name. Even if you went to the venue, what could you do? Robert turned around. Only his eyes were exposed. The rest of his body was covered in bandages, and some of them were even stained with blood. He was severely burned, bleeding nonstop, and there were many wounds on his body that had been bitten by rats. There were countless wounds all over his body, and the only reason he was able to survive was because of Ludic's special ability. However, Ludic was afraid of pain, and the other party was obviously not a cute girl, so his rescue was limited. He only managed to pull the other party back from the brink of death. His injuries were still shocking. However, Robert had persevered all the way here without stopping, nor did he show any signs of pain or discomfort. LeVar couldn't help but be shocked by this guy's strong willpower. What do you mean? Robert said calmly. Do you see those black crosses in the sky above the ceremony? Such a big change has happened in the Free City, and even the Archangel, St. John, has been killed. Can't the saints of the 7 capitals see it? They can't not see it. LeVar shook his head. Could it be? Clearly, there are only 2 possibilities, Robert said solemnly. One is that they know, but they can't do anything about it. The other is that they have been deceived by something, and everything in the Free City is still normal in their eyes. LeVar's expression changed drastically. How can it be? Unbelievable? Robert said, but this is what is happening, and no matter which possibility it is extremely bad. Moreover, this happened during the Good Friday ceremony. Then, how many schemes are involved in this? Do you dare to think about it? LeVar clenched his teeth. So, why did you bring me here? Because I need someone with faith, Robert said calmly. Pray, in front of the statue of the Free City Saint, pray with your greatest sincerity. Laval subconsciously frowned. He firmly believed that praying was something that came from the heart. It was spontaneous and not forced. Robert, at this moment, brought him a strong compulsion. This kind of prayer had no soul. Robert said, LeVar, I know you. Someone around Ludic. You don't need to know how I know you, but I believe in your faith. Compared to Ludic, who is too scheming, you are pure. More importantly, you also have the bloodline of the Saint family. LeVar's expression changed slightly before, but now it changed drastically. Robert said, Don't be nervous. I didn't investigate you on purpose. It's just that for some reason, I pay more attention to the matters of the Saint family. Not many people know that you are the illegitimate child of the Mother of Saints. Aren't you one? LeVar sneered. Robert said, I can't explain my origins to you. The current me doesn't even exist. You can choose not to trust me, but before that, you have to answer a question of mine. Do you want to save the Free City? Why me? LeVar frowned and asked, Because I can't find anyone more suitable. Robert sighed. Time doesn't allow it, and my current state doesn't allow it either. The actual situation doesn't allow it either. Among the descendants of the Saint family, Asakes, Ludic, and Isabel are all trapped. You are the only one left. LeVar was silent. Robert said again, even if you feel that you can't bear the burden of saving the free city, what about Ludic? That Ludic who pulled you back from the brink of death and gave you a new life. Other than being unable to give you a proper name, he didn't despise your identity as an illegitimate child from the beginning to the end. He even gave you the love of an elder brother. Do you want to save him? What should I do? LeVar looked up. I said. Robert pointed at the half-destroyed statue of the Saint of Freedom. Pray with your greatest sincerity. As long as you believe, you will be able to meet the source of the legend. You will hear her voice on the other side of time and space. He seemed to have heard similar words somewhere. It was the maid beside the youth surnamed Luo. She had said similar words before. I pray because I believe in the Saint of Freedom, not for anyone else. LeVar nodded expressionlessly. He walked directly to the half-destroyed statue of the Saint of Freedom and made a textbook prayer pose. A ball of hazy light appeared on LeVar's body. It was very pure. Can I make it in time? Robert muttered to himself. His legend had disappeared. He was a person without a name. Even Robert was just a name that was misidentified. Now, he was no longer the Prince of Light of the Kingdom of Heaven or the Archangel who suppressed the world. He was just a broken body that contained a soul that was gradually losing its way. That was all. He didn't even know how long he could stay awake. Perhaps not long after. Even he would completely forget everything. He would be completely cut off from his previous legend. He had seen how terrifying that man was, the shop owner, who reduced him, the Archangel of the Kingdom of Heaven, to such a state with just one sentence. The higher-ups of the Kingdom of Heaven had always known how terrifying the shop owner was, but they had never personally experienced it. Now, he experienced it once and truly understood why, had to fulfill the terms of the contract and even hand over the Saint of Freedom when he had no other choice. Robert retracted his thoughts. Although he was anxious, he still watched LeVar pray calmly. The quality of LeVar's wish power was very high. Even among the high-level petitioners, it was extremely outstanding. If LeVar could keep this up, it was even possible for him to become a holy disciple in the future. However, the black cross hovering above the Holy Maiden ceremony seemed to move. The sky above the City of Freedom suddenly changed. Robert finally couldn't remain calm. Is it too late? At this moment, a golden pattern appeared silently at the base of the half-destroyed statue of the Saint of Freedom. Robert's eyes lit up. Ignoring the wounds on his body, he walked to the base and reached out to touch it. As the wish power on LeVar's body grew stronger, 3 golden patterns appeared on the base of the statue. Enough! Robert yelled in a deep voice. LeVar didn't stop until he finished one round of prayers. Then, he slowly opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, the base of the Saint of Freedom statue had opened, revealing an entrance that had never been recorded before. LeVar was shocked. There was another entrance at the base of the Saint of Freedom statue. More importantly, how did Robert, a guy who wasn't from the City of Freedom, know about it? Hurry! Robert's eyes suddenly became anxious. I hope I can make it in time. LeVar suddenly shivered and looked toward the Holy Maiden ceremony, as if he had sensed something. He saw a black light descending from the sky. The wind in the City of Freedom instantly changed. Mortal, worship me! LeVar's heart suddenly jumped, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. He couldn't help but shed tears as he stared at the figure that gradually appeared in the black light. He wanted to stand in front of this figure. He wanted to prostrate himself before its feet. However, a brutal force pulled LeVar back to reality. When he regained his senses, he was pulled into the entrance of the base of the statue by Robert. That's not the saint that you should worship. Robert said in a deep voice. The one that you should worship is inside. Here, in a guest room of Rose Mansion in the City of Freedom. The young girl got up with a splitting headache. She felt weak all over. She wanted to leave, but she rolled off the bed. She felt as if there were countless people shouting in her ears all the time. This caused great pain to the young girl's weak spirit. She almost had to crawl to reach the door of the room. She used all her strength to successfully open the door. She wanted to shout, but she was extremely panicked. She didn't even know what happened. She only vaguely felt that something was calling her. Everything in Rose Mansion wasn't unfamiliar to the young girl. However, the world outside was extremely unfamiliar to her. The young girl collapsed on the floor again. She knew that this wasn't the village that she was familiar with. "Father, Ms. Assman in..." The young girl muttered. "Luo, where are you?" She was Jean d'Arc. At this moment, her entire body was numb and weak. This situation was like the prey that she usually hunted with anesthesia. She slapped the floor with difficulty, hoping that someone would discover that she had woken up. However, the Rose Mansion was dead silent. No one came. The young girl could only stop slapping the floor. She gritted her teeth and struggled to get up again. Thud, 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 thud. The sound came from a floor below, and it was continuing. The girl was startled and followed the thumping sound. Not long after, the door leading to the basement that was hidden at the bottom of the stairs slowly opened. The young girl let Na walk into the dark basement. In front of her was a cage that was as tall as a person. It was covered with a black cloth. The sound came from inside. The young girl hesitated for a moment, but her brave and decisive character drove her to lift the black cloth. Bang! Something crashed into the cage at this moment. The young girl calmed herself down and looked. What she saw was actually a chubby little fellow that was as small as a baby, yet fluttering like a fairy in the legends. "It's you calling me." The young girl looked at the fairy in the cage and murmured subconsciously. The little guy in the cage was quickly gesturing something in the air. In the end, it gave up this gesture and slowly stretched out a finger. The girl seemed to have Naofu's heart, and at this time, she also stretched out her finger. When the two fingers touched, countless words instantly entered the young girl's mind. After a while, the young girl, Jenna, seemed to have lost all of her strength and fell to the ground in an instant. Ow! The young girl's face was full of fear, uneasiness, and disbelief. It can't be like this, it can't be. So many words poured into her mind. She needed some time to digest them all. However, among the many messy messages, there was only one that almost made her collapse. She was deliberately created. She was a fake. End of chapter. Chapter 2344. Today, Sensei Fairsky walked with a swagger. Her smile hadn't disappeared since this morning. The weather was also getting better. Even the bell that signaled the start of classes was no longer so annoying. For the workers, Thursday was a wonderful turn of events, like the darkest hour before dawn. He was looking forward to the date at the beach with Mr. Lilly. However, the most important thing now was to meet Teacher Lilith once in a while. Teacher Fairsky had calculated the time and knew that Teacher Lilith had just finished class. Originally, the next class was supposed to be PE class, but his class today was in the afternoon. He had no choice but to use his authority as a form teacher to borrow a class hour from the PE teacher in the name of catching up with the class schedule. That's what everyone does, isn't it? Music and aesthetics classes. Mr. Chintan cleared his throat and opened the classroom door. Lily? It wasn't Mr. Lilly who was standing on the podium, but an older male foreign language teacher. Although the bell had rung for a long time, this teacher was in the middle of the last 5 minutes and was suddenly interrupted, so he was very unhappy. Mr. Lilly asked for leave today, so I'm here to substitute for you. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chintian paused and closed the classroom door awkwardly. Applying for leave. Teacher Lilith applied for leave again. At the entrance of the supermarket, the woman became the focus of the men. They couldn't help but sneak a peek at the woman who was full of fatal temptation. But she seemed to be waiting for someone who could win her favor. That must be the happiest man in the world. Finally, the woman seemed to have found the person she was waiting for. She stopped standing there and walked to a black-haired young man. Why did you ask me to meet here? Lily looked at the young man in front of her with confusion. For her, he was an extremely dangerous guy. Because when you come back, you can start here. Boss Luo smiled. Lilith couldn't help but frown as if she didn't quite understand. Reback? Boss Luo said, Yes, Ms. Lily, Don't you want to be the new saint? I think it's time. It was so sudden that Lilith was not prepared for it at all. She did not even know how to react. But the page whirled? Lilith subconsciously said, "Are you planning to leave now? Don't you want this page?" Boss Luo said casually, "Ms. Lily, do you like to read?" Lily opened her mouth and shook her head. "I don't like to read, but I read a lot." "What's wrong with that?" Boss Luo smiled. "When we read, we usually can't finish in one breath. We will put a bookmark and then close the book. When the time is right, we will open the book again and start from the page where the bookmark is." Lily shook her head. "I know what you were saying, but Book of Gaia is different. Once we leave, all the progress will be cleared. I have tried many times." "That's because Ms. Lily didn't put a bookmark." Boss Luo chuckled. "Don't worry. When we come back again, we will start from here." "Can it be so simple?" Lily couldn't help but show a doubtful look. But if she could leave Book of Gaia, it might be a good thing for her. After all, she had been away from what she set up for too long. Whether it was successful or not, as one of the people behind the scenes, she hoped to see the result. Can you really make me a new sage?" She was still doubtful. It was not that she didn't want to believe, but Boss Luo was too casual. It was very insincere. "After leaving here, Ms. Lily will be the new sage." Boss Luo smiled faintly. "You will become a sage in the name of Lily. Your legend will spread in the Holy Light Kingdom." "That's impossible," Lily said in a deep voice. "Nothing is impossible," Yi Zichen said. Boss Luo said casually, "Because I said so." "Then, Ms. Lily, please return to your sage list." It was as if Lilith had heard the funniest joke in the world. Just as she was about to mock him, her body was being pulled away by something. A vortex directly swept her consciousness away. She didn't even have time to carefully look at this unfinished page world. "I wish you a pleasant journey to become a sage, Ms. Lily. I wish you a pleasant journey to become a sage, Ms. Lily." The voice sounded from the bottom of her heart. She suddenly woke up, only to feel a few pairs of oppressive eyes looking at her. Lily couldn't help but subconsciously hold her breath, because these oppressive gazes came from almost all the sages of the 7 capitals. This is above the white clouds of the Holy Light Kingdom? "Lily, what happened? You seem to be distracted." A blazing angel couldn't help but frown at this time. Illusion. This is impossible. Looking at everything in front of her, she had to believe it, because although these sages of the 7 capitals looked at her with dignified gazes, they were still equal. Lily's thoughts were in a mess, but facing the more and more puzzled gazes of the sages, she could only ask calmly, "What time is it now?" "It's about time to inject power into the new sage." The blazing angel who spoke first said slowly, "Other than John, who hasn't returned yet, everything is going smoothly. Yes, a true sage will be born in the Free City soon." Lily couldn't help but fall silent. This was above the white clouds, the place where the sages created the new sage. Looking from here, the Free City was peaceful. The Holy Maiden ceremony had progressed to the most intense part, and the final candidate of the Holy Maiden ceremony was about to be born. She, under the calls of the people, slowly stepped onto the stage. But this was all an illusion. All of this was a stage that she created with part of the power of the Book of Gaia before entering the Book of Gaia. And in this stage, there was only this group of sages of the 7 capitals. The real situation of the Free City was not what she saw at this time. The new sage's position was about to be completed. It was floating in front of Lily, like a star, emitting the color of glass. This should be what she wanted to obtain. But ironically, she didn't need to obtain this new position now. She was already a sage, and she was about to inject power into this position. Everything had been obtained easily, but she didn't have the slightest joy at this time. If all of this was obtained so easily, then what was the meaning of so many things she had arranged? She stretched out her hand almost mechanically to the new position that was about to be completed. Under the urging of the sages of the 7 capitals, she injected power into it. What a joke. All of this had been obtained, and it was meaningless to create a new position at this time. But the power was flowing out of her hand. This was because this was not a hypostasis bestowed by, but was personally created by the saints of the seven capitals. In order to make the new hypostasis reach their level, every saint present had to inject at least 1/10 of their power. Lily could feel that she was unprecedentedly powerful, so she could accept only taking out 1/10 of her power. This was completely different from when she was a puppet before. She was the puppet of the free sage's position. Although it was also a sage's position, it was only a temporary tool created by the archangel who had just reached the threshold of a sage. When all the sages began to inject power into the new position, and they were about to reach the limit, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared. What's going on? Why is the power still being injected? At this moment, a blazing angel revealed a look of surprise. My strength has already been lost by far more than 1/10. Mine too, not good. The new position is stealing our power. The excessive loss of power also caused Lilith to feel fear. But what she was afraid of was something else. It's a shadow. Our shadows are being controlled by something. A cry of surprise sounded. The sages looked at their shadows one after another. Their shadows had been entangled by black chains at some point in time. The chains not only controlled the sages' shadows, but they could even affect the sages' actions at this moment. It could be said that their bodies were being forced to inject power into the new position by the chains that bound their shadows. It's almost half of its power. Not good. If this continues, this position will, the moment it was born, it would have power that far exceeded that of a sage. This position would also evolve into a superposition. The new superposition would be infinitely close to God, on the same level as an archangel, and have the most powerful power under, but this was just a guess. Because in the history of the kingdom of heaven, there had never been a seraph or a sage who would use this method to create a new position. If it weren't for the fact that a sage had died in the free city this time, if it weren't for the fact that he had left, if it weren't for the fact that they wanted to stabilize the kingdom of holy light, these sages of the seven capitals wouldn't have taken the risk to activate the sages' resurrection ritual. But even if they activated the resurrection ritual, the sages only intended to create a sage of the same level as them. But at this moment, the new position was actually crazily devouring their power. They couldn't reverse it or resist it. The strange black chains made these sages of the seven capitals unable to break free. Lily was even more desperate now. She knew who was behind this, and she was even one of the people behind this. But at this moment, she didn't want this plan to continue, because she was already a sage. 90%. She had only been a sage for less than 10 minutes, and 90% of her power had been taken away. The current her was even worse than when she was a puppet. Becoming a sage, came and went so quickly, just like flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water. She looked at the position that was shining like the sun in despair. Finally, after almost devouring all the power of the sages present, a new superposition was born. This calm stage was directly shattered the moment the superposition was born. The superposition had broken this part of the book of Gaia, stage. The white clouds were no longer pure and flawless. The white clouds were dyed black, and the surrounding wind and thunder seemed to have turned into hell in an instant. But in the face of all this, the sages of the seven capitals, who had almost all their power absorbed, were powerless to stop it. Look, there was a cry of surprise. At this moment, the new superposition shot out in an instant. The superposition was actually thrown into a palm. A black robe covered its face. Its face couldn't be seen clearly, as if it was shrouded by a layer of fog. In its palm, the superposition was vibrating as if it wanted to escape. But soon, those black chains that made the sages unable to move and even forced them to instill power into it appeared again, and actually completely sealed the superposition. It's just born, and it's already so naughty. This won't do. It made an almost neutral voice. Don't worry, I'll find a suitable carrier for you soon. Who the hell are you? An angry voice was heard. It was one of the sages who was struggling to stand up weakly. The black-robed man laughed at this time. It's been hard on everyone. In order to complete this superposition, you must be very tired, right? But it doesn't matter. I prepared some drinks for you to replenish your strength. The voice was not only neutral, but also unexpectedly gentle. After that, small bottles fell from the sages' heads one after another and directly fell into the hands of the sages. Lily looked at the small bottle in her hand in disbelief. Strictly speaking, this was a drink bottle. It even had the words functional drink written on it. It was really a drink that could only replenish strength. Then, everyone have a good rest. It laughed again, took the superposition, and turned around to leave. Wait a minute. Lily quickly got up at this time. I'm Lily. It paused, slowly turned around, and looked at Lily. Yes, I know. Sage Lily, the first wife of a human. And then? You don't remember? What do I need to remember? It couldn't help but ask curiously. Lily gritted her teeth and said, The Book of Gaia. You gave it to me. Have you forgotten? It was puzzled, although I'm curious why you said that, and even know about the Book of Gaia, but if my memory is not wrong, I only gave the Book of Gaia to Morgan. But it doesn't matter. It's not important anymore. How was this possible? Lilith, who had just struggled to stand up, suddenly fell back down onto the ground. She had no fear. Her heart of fear had been sealed away. But if her heart of fear was still there, how would she feel right now? It no longer looked at Lily, took the superposition, and threw it forward with force. The superposition, that shone like the sun, was instantly dyed black, and then turned into a black light, directly penetrating the sky and falling into the ground. Be born, the new sage of freedom. It whispered, No, it should be the overlord of freedom.